Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. This is the August 26th meeting of the Bennington Select Board. My name is Jeannie Jenkins, and I have the pleasure of chairing this board. And we'll start with having Select Board members introduce themselves.
Hi, Nancy White.
Good evening, I'm Ed Woods. You notice that I might have a little black and blue around my eye. I'm going to address that because it might come up. Just a little medical issue, nobody hit me, and I'm good. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tom Haley.
Good evening, Clark Adams.
I'm Jean Connor.
Hi, Sarah Perrin.
Hi, and also with us tonight, we have Stu Hurd, our town manager. We have Nancy Lively taking minutes, great as always, and Josh Boucher from Cat TV filming us live, which is really very much appreciated. So we'll begin as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ed, would you lead us?
I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Ed. And Tom, would you read the vision statement that guides our work?
Certainly. Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is the consent agenda. For the purposes of discussion, could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you.
And second.
Thank you. Any discussion? I added a couple of last name for Aaron Williams from Department of Labor and also Martha Beauchamp from UVM Extension, Master Gardeners. Okay.
I just wanted to thank our wonderful minute taker for taking the time to accurately spell all the Afghan refugee names.
Yes. Thank you. Anything else?
Are you including the warrants?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, the whole consent agenda.
Just on the tax bills, they got mailed out.
On
The bills we're getting in the mail now?
is it on the warrants?
Yeah, I think it is.
Well, find it and give us the number,
Okay,
please.
page 3, 401507, Eastern Sales, $760. Is that for the tax bills we're getting now?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Well, I don't think many of us can read the local information. It's so faint, I had to use I had to put my glasses on, and I still couldn't see it.
Mine looked fine. I got it in the mail today.
Well, I've looked at 2 others, so I didn't know if everybody's were going out so faintly printed you could barely read them. I just asked that next year they check before they go out.
Quality issue.
We do 6,000 tax bills, so if some of them actually faded during the printing, it'd be hard to catch, but I
Okay.
appreciate that.
Well, I didn't know because I'd seen 3 and they were all the same. I didn't
Okay.
know if everybody's were going out like that.
All right. I'll note that.
Anything else?
I do, but I'll have to bring it up under other business.
Anything else on the consent agenda, which is the agenda item we're on? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, unanimous. Okie dokie. All right, this might be a first. We have no one that has signed up for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to comment on something that is not on tonight's agenda? Remarkable. Okay. All right. All right, then we'll move on. All right, and next up is the VCDP Planning Grant for Shires Housing Merger with Cat Briers. And Cat, you'll have to tell us what VCDP is.
Could I ask a question first?
No.
Hi, everyone. Let's see, make sure it's picked me up.
I am short, as we revisit every time I'm here. My name is Cap Ryers. I'm the executive director, the outgoing executive director of Shires Housing, and we're here tonight to present this application that we've done with the town. VCDP is the Vermont Community Development Program. And we have done many of these applications with the town before. It's state funding that only municipalities can apply for, but that typically another community organization receives through the town. In this case, it's to support and expand affordable housing development such as Shires does. So we have submitted an application via the town for $60,000 to support merger activity. Shires has been moving towards merger now since, well, a year ago that Mary and I started talking to each other. I am going to do a little intro and then I'm going to hand it off to my colleague here, Mary, to share more. But the basics is that this is an application for that money to support merger activities between Shires Housing, the region's affordable housing developer and manager. We also provide the region's SASH program, which is a free of charge service to seniors and adults living with disabilities to provide them services in their home to allow them to live independently. Again, we provide those services free of charge to a couple of hundred residents in the region, as well as housing well over 1,000 residents in the county in our housing, which stretches from Bennington to Manchester. And we began talking with Rutland about a year ago, as I said, about merging all of the affordable housing developers and managers in the state. At this point, the majority of them are operating at least a 2-county scale, often a 3-county scale. So there's only a handful of us that are still operating at a 1-county scale. It's Shires, it's Rutland, although Rutland has just consummated their merger, which I'm sure Mary's going to share, and there's one other housing organization, and all of those organizations at this point are actively engaged in merger pursuit to become stronger organizations in the future. So I've teed this up really well. As I said, I'm the outgoing executive director at Shires Housing. My last day is actually this Thursday. I announced about a month and a half ago that I would be moving on to another role, and Mary Cohen here is the executive director of the Housing Trust of Rutland County and NeighborWorks of Western Vermont, and she is projected to become the executive director of this premier merged housing organization for Southwest Vermont.
Thank you, everybody, and thank you for this opportunity to apply for this Vermont Community Development Program grant. This is a planning grant, again, for $60,000 to help our merger activities. The merger activities include some financial consulting as we bring our organizations together, some legal work that needs to be done to have the transaction happen, and then integration of systems, integration of staff, et cetera. It's a pretty hefty budget, and as Kat said, we have up in Rutland, the Housing Trust of Rutland County has merged with NeighborWorks of Western Vermont, and NeighborWorks of Western Vermont does actually cover 3 counties, Addison, Bennington, and Rutland counties. We look forward to the opportunity to bringing some of those programs in a stronger way down here in Bennington, and the Housing Trust and Shires actually do a lot of the same work, so we're with real estate development and affordable housing, multifamily. So we are really excited to merge these organizations and make them stronger. And as Kat said, when you cover a larger geographic area, you do create heft in the organization. This is actually Housing Trust and NeighborWorks of Western Vermont have also applied for these planning grants. The Housing Trust has already received one, and the West Rutland and where NeighborWorks is will go in the same time that this one is. So that's what. Thank you for the opportunity.
So can we ask you some questions or make some comments? Nancy, is your question appropriate now?
Well, I was going to ask to table it until Shannon was here. I have a lot of questions, but where's the $60,000 coming from you're looking for?
It's the Agency of Commerce and Community Development has a program called the Vermont Community Development Program, and they have 3 types of grants. One is an implementation grant, one is a planning grant, and I forget what the third one is.
But is this coming from state taxes?
It's a federal program through to ACCD.
I'm concerned, and I know most of the people who run Shires now haven't been there for very long. We just found out within the last 2 months that for whatever reason, over the past 10 years, Shires never bothered to properly maintain the elevator at Corby Whitney, a historic building in Bennington, where seniors have been paying to rent to have a working elevator. The seniors have told me the roof has needed work for years. There's an old staircase. They don't even know if it's safe to use in case of fire. And I'm very concerned if we have one building with these major issues, are there other buildings in Bennington that we don't know about? I don't know how a federal program isn't getting inspected by the state fire marshal. I don't know if our town building inspectors should be doing it. On here, I'm reading about transfers of property. Would Shires be transferring any properties they own in Bennington to anybody else?
Yes. The good news about this merger and the activities that we're conducting is that we are doing a portfolio analysis, which is doing a good analysis of all the physical assets and the financials that align with them. This is a really good opportunity for us to take a look at the properties that are not performing or have some deficiencies and figure out how we can best get them into redevelopment or into a rehab situation. During this transaction, the assets will be transferred to the Housing Trust of Rutland County's entity.
Everything in Bennington will go to Rutland County?
This is a merger. So the idea is that that Shires and NeighborWorks and the Housing
Trust of Rutland County.
Yes, will become one entity instead of being the 3 entities that they've been in the past. So what they're doing is applying for a grant, and it has to run through a municipality. So that's why they're before us. Otherwise, they wouldn't be asking us.
Right.
And that money is to figure out legally how to do this and to be able to do the work they can do so that the merger can go forward in a proper way.
I don't see how it benefits Bennington County to merge with Rutland County.
Okay, all right.
That's it.
All right, so, and maybe one of the things that would be helpful to talk about, because we do have a lot of concerns. A lot of organizations that serve Bennington County are housed in Rutland County, and we are woefully neglected by those organizations, in my opinion. And so I think the question that Nancy's asking is, how are we going to make why is the merger necessary, and why have other areas of the state merged? And then the second part is, are there plans to bring Bennington County in a more meaningful way so that we don't lose what we've had by having Shires in town?
Incredibly valid, and I will say that the Shires Board has expressed the exact same concerns. Other organizations in the state have merged because the organizations just get a little stronger when there's sometimes duplications of jobs. If you have one person that does something and that person goes away, you're left vulnerable. So that's one of the reasons why the merges are happening across the state. One of the unique advantages that we have is NeighborWorks of Western Vermont. They are affiliated with NeighborWorks America and has tremendous resources. Although they were down here in Bennington for homeownership and energy efficiency programs, we have never had the benefit of the real estate development resources that comes from NeighborWorks America. So that will also be a real benefit to Bennington. I can stand here today and say, oh yes, don't worry, we'll bring more all of our programs and strength to Bennington. But until I actually can do it, you won't know. It is our intention to do a first-year strategic plan. And again, the Shires Board, one of their main questions was, how are you going to bring these programs down here? What is it going to look like? So we're already talking about what that's going to look like.
Great. Other people?
If I may.
Yeah.
This is a follow-up, and I think it follows up well to what you just said. Bringing those resources to Bennington County that you just mentioned, is there a part of that addresses the concern that Nancy raised? It's an isolated incident that we happen to know about on this board, but to Nancy's point, there may be others. You mentioned real estate development. Is that part of what can be, is repair, maintenance, better upkeep a part of what can be accomplished? And then I guess part 2 of my question is, have the merging boards thought about assurances to the communities who are losing their local entity, if you will, it may end up being a strength to Bennington County, but when the entity that was local is no longer, it feels like a loss to the small community. That's just human nature.
So, a couple of things. The Kat's walking away, but no one else is leaving the organization as far as I know today. Not only do we need every single one of the people who are located here in Bennington, we probably need a few more. So we'll be looking at staffing and making sure that certainly their presence is here. And as far as leadership of the new organization, the CFO is going to be located down here. There's going to be several directors that are going to be located down here in Bennington, because Kat did a really good job over the last couple of years of hiring some people who are extremely helpful. I forgot the first part of your question.
The other piece was related to
Real estate development and
development
right,
resources.
right.
Yeah.
So yes, we do real estate development in Rutland, and now it'll be in Bennington counties. It will absolutely cross both. And as far as the opportunity for rehab, the state over the last 4 years has been really focused on new units, new units, new units. And none of our portfolios across the state have really benefited from rehab. We are in the best position right now to negotiate with our funders to get something like Cora B up and running and how it should be. Portfolio analysis will give us a lot of good information that we can negotiate with our funders.
Thank you for that, and that's not the first time we've heard the focus on new housing rather than upkeep of existing, so I understand and appreciate that. Thank you.
Yep.
Yes, good evening. My concern is the regionalism. By shifting to Rutland and this other organization, which you state is aligned with a national organization, I think something will be lost in terms of local input, local control on this activity. I also hear that this organization, this Western Vermont organization, has great resources, but yet you stand here before us asking us to support a $60,000 grant. It seems like a conundrum. When you say resources, money is the ultimate resource. Are you telling me that financially this $60,000 is a make or break for your organization?
Our merger budget is a little over $400,000. And yes, we have tapped into NeighborWorks America for a portion of that. We are tapping into Vermont Housing Conservation Board, the Vermont Community Development Program, internally, our own organizations, if we need to, we will get resources from there. Is $60,000 going to make us not do that? No, but it's certainly going to help when we start integrating our systems and our people.
This is federal money that's available to organizations doing exactly what you're doing. So in some ways, it feels like an organization would be foolish not to go after federal funding that's going to help them do a good job. Otherwise it comes out of your budget, and why should it if federal funds are available?
We'd rather not be under-resourced during this activity, and there is a lot of cost to
And I just want to make one point, that it is not Bennington taxpayers that are going to be burdened with this $60,000, and you're not asking us to give you a grant for $60,000. I just want that to be clear.
You're also saying that you're going to have a footprint down here, so that there will be a physical office in Bennington? Mm-hmm. All right, that makes me feel better.
And we'd also like to create some kind of home ownership center down here that NeighborWorks, programming would bring. I don't know what that looks like today, but in 12 months or, maybe even 6 months after we get our strategic planning in place, we will have a better idea.
Again, I still have concerns. One of the words that sticks in my craw is the idea of free money, or it doesn't matter, it's federal money. No, it won't impact on the people of Bennington. Is there anyone in this room who hasn't paid a federal income tax in the last 5 years? So the idea of free money, I'm offended by that.
So Clark, if the money doesn't come to us, it'll go to another community. It's not that money isn't going to be spent, it's where it's going to be spent. And what they're advocating and what they're asking us is for that money to be spent in our community. Because this is money that's earmarked for this purpose.
Again, I'm looking at the big picture. This is a small piece of the first bite and eating the elephant across this country, the idea that it's only free money. The government has money tree. It's only free, one bit at a time. The more and more we ask for or demand, the more and more we're going to expect. I believe this state pretty much is strongly addicted to the grant teat of the federal government. And at one point, somewhere in this state, people are going to have to step back and say, where does it stop? And the first step of the long journey is just that first step. And I think it's time for us to start making that first step, not just here in Bennington, but across the entire state and country. Okay. There is no free money.
Okay. Jean, yes?
Yeah, they can do this. They don't need our permission to merge. You know, all we have control over is the grant application that we're approving or disapproving. So, and I hope you're not interpreting our questions negatively. I knew nothing about this. I don't know if anyone else did, and I'm not saying I should have, but I'm just surprised. That's all. I'm not saying I'm for it. I am. If you think it's best, you're the professionals. I'm going to trust your opinion, but I don't want you to interpret this grilling you're getting. Everyone may be as surprised as I am. So anyway, I just wanted to give you some context of how it feels to be sitting here hearing this for me for the first time.
Again, that's an interesting note, along with what Nancy was mentioning about the absence of Shannon. I think that's important in her question. We should have heard about this long before, a few hours
Well,
before.
actually, a memo did go out. A memo did go out.
On what date?
From Shannon.
But that was the 22nd. How many days ago was that, in terms of working? How long has she been talking or working on this project?
Well, this is not her project. Shannon's role in this is she is the person that makes sure the money comes in and the money goes out. This is a pass-through.
I understand.
Shannon's not applying for this funding in the sense of the towns using this funding. It's a municipal planning, it's a municipal grant, so she has to be involved. The town has to be involved.
When did
And
her
as
involvement
community
begin? That's my
development
question. When did her involvement begin?
Well, you put out the notice. It was in the notice went out.
Well, maybe some context I can provide is that, you know, mergers are sensitive things when they come up, and it's a little bit like dating somebody, and you don't really know where it's going to go. So, you know, Rutland and Shires' dating started about a year ago when we started to get to know each other, and then our board started to get to know each other, and then we started floating the idea with our staff and feeling it out, and at some point it's not exactly clear that it's going to happen or not, but I would say maybe late this spring, that's when we started to feel like, okay, maybe this is really going to happen. I think at that point, I know, Jeannie, you and I sat down and had a conversation about this. I met with Shannon and got it on the town's radar. And then it was probably 2 months ago that I approached Shannon and said, we're pulling together this merger budget. There's a lot of one-time expenses, just one-time expenses to pursue and implement a merger. And that's what this is for, is those one-time expenses. Because if you don't pay for those one-time expenses well, then you're setting up this endeavor to not be successful long-term and deliver all these goals that we have for it. So it was probably 2 months ago that I spoke with Shannon. Jeannie, you and I had already talked about this whole pursuit and exchanged some ideas and feelings about it. So that's how long we've been dialoguing about it with the town.
So last week was the first time we heard.
So our rules are everyone gets to speak once before anyone speaks twice. So I want to ask Sarah, do you have any questions?
Nobody likes change, right? No, I can think that no one likes change here. Certain change, but generally nobody likes change. I'm seeing merger. When we think of southern Vermont, I think most of us think of the forgotten part of the state. So in seeing merger, southern Vermont, I look at you both, I see you both, I know you both. Well, I know one of you professionally, I don't know you yet. I'm sure we'll get to know each other. I trust you professionally since we worked together. I would just ask that when this merger occurs, don't forget about us. Thank you for coming to speak today, too. Please, just don't forget about us down here.
I hear you.
Please.
I'm just going to add one piece, which is, as Mary pointed to, the board of Shires Housing, which is comprised of residents across the whole county and range from people that are high profile that people are familiar with. Our board chair right now is Jim Sullivan, who was the head of BCRC for years and years, and has always worked towards regional strength, regional development. He's been at the helm working on all of this, pushing it forward. Somebody that, when I was getting my own head around this merger idea, we're very lucky to have Scott Winslow of GBICS, if you guys are familiar with him. He was an accounting manager at the hospital when the hospital's initial merger conversation started years ago. So don't forget that we have a huge, actually one of the biggest regional employers right in our backyard here that is a merged organization that still has its presence, is still growing, is still providing services, and we know that that can be done. It's tricky, but that's a reason why having the right people at the table, getting the funding and the support together to make this work for us is key, and that's why we're having this as a community conversation.
Great. Tom, anything?
Yeah, Kat, you just mentioned a lot about the Shires board. The board of this new proposed entity, would we be guaranteed that there'd be representatives from both counties on that board?
Yes, and as a matter of fact, that's what all the board members right now of all organizations, all three organizations are working on. What is this going to look like? What does representation look like? Not only do we need geographic, we also need to have resident participation in this. So yeah, we don't have answers. Again, it's not completely defined today. This transaction, or we're hoping that this merger happens at the end of the year or by 1/1, and hopefully all of that will be settled with bylaws and
Great. My other question was about time frame, so I think you just covered that.
Other questions from the board? Clark, did you have something else?
I just want to make clear in my own mind. So you and Shannon have been communicating with these folks for the past 2 months, is that correct? Is that what
Are
I
you
heard?
asking me? I've had, Kat and I sat down and had a conversation where she said, we're looking at merging, and I went, that never works well for Bennington County. And then she explained the value of increased financial support, what NeighborWorks would bring that Shires and the Housing Trust in Rutland, neither one of them have right now, and acknowledged my very grave concerns about what happens when organizations are housed in Rutland and serve Bennington County. So I am really happy to hear that it's down here. So Kat and I had one conversation, and then she contacted me to say that they wanted to be on an agenda, and we worked backwards with Stu to make sure that it had to be noticed because it's a hearing. So we worked back from that, and this was the date that we came up with. So I had one conversation with Kat, which was very fruitful, and as I do, I shared my thoughts. And then Shannon and Kat had to talk in order to move forward on this municipal grant in order for them to apply for the $60,000. What they're coming to us right now is to get our blessing so that they can apply for the $60,000 and hopefully get it so that the $60,000 to do this work doesn't come out of Shires Housing and Rutland and Trust and NeighborWorks, their budgets. So that's the extent of what we've had a conversation about. So that's why they're here, is to give us this, and we all got the memo from Shannon in our email, and that's what we all have.
If this were in the works, I think it's been less than 2 months ago that we actually had a briefing from the Shires staff, as I recall. And I don't recall hearing anything about potential mergers or shifts in management structure.
No, because it was still, I think it was still in the final stages of figuring it out. Do you want to,
In general, with mergers, you don't want to get too far ahead of yourself because you don't really know until you've gone through a due diligence period if it is going to move forward or not. So we were still, in fact, we haven't officially decided. The boards are voting this coming month, but they've been working very hard on their due diligence period. And while we have gotten really excited about everything that this can bring to our region, we've been trying to both move everything forward and not get the cart ahead of the horse in terms of the due diligence period. So the last time I was here, it was too early in due diligence to be making any public announcements.
When did the memo
I'm
come
going to jump in
through?
here if I could, please.
Okay.
Shannon was held to a confidentiality standard because you have 3 entities negotiating a business deal. And until they are ready to put that deal forward, it is confidential. And even the little as I knew about it, we were not able to discuss that with the board at that time until this notice for this public hearing was posted. Then we knew we could go forward with it. And that's why we couldn't tell you folks that it was in the works. It's why Kat couldn't tell you folks it was in the works when she was here a while ago. It's business.
When did the memo come in to our email? I got to look.
The memo from Shannon is dated August 22nd.
I got it in my email. It looks like, Sarah, did you have it? No?
Did you see it?
I may have, I don't.
Missed it.
So maybe it was supposed to go in the packets, too.
That's where it ended up in the packet.
Oh, is it in the packet? It is in the packet? Wait, how did we get it? Okay, it came in the email then. Okay, it came through email.
Because she was late.
Because it's not in the packet.
It didn't
Yeah.
make the
Okay,
packet. That's
okay.
right.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to say, so what we are here to discuss is this municipal resolution for these entities, for Shires to be able to apply for a VCDP planning grant application. Is there any more conversation from us? Otherwise, I want to ask anyone in the audience that would like to speak to this.
I just want to address the board, if I could,
Okay.
on this issue. We have to remember that that communication is available through the monthly communication report that we get from the Community Development Director. Anything that she wanted or needed action to be taken on is there. To Stu's point, this in particular was confidential or not ready to be discussed. Part 2 is I hope that this board will consider the work that needs to be done in an inevitable merger rather than put the displeasure of the overall merger in the way of the organization obtaining this money, because if the money is not obtained in this way, it will likely reduce function of a new organization.
Nancy.
This isn't just Rutland County Housing taking over the housing in Bennington County, most of which is in our town. Now we'll have to think what longtime Bennington County nonprofits will be taken over by Rutland. It's already happened with 2. Many people don't feel the services are the same today as they used to be. And this is just another example of how people in Vermont, we're losing our say and our voices in our town and even in our county. Are the people in Rutland aware of this?
Yes, they are, and we have already received a planning grant through our municipality, and everybody is aware.
And again, we are not here to discuss whether they're merging or not. That's their decision. They are not part of the town. So this is not that discussion. We can all have our opinions about mergers, and we have a lot of Brock services come out of Rutland. NeighborWorks has been coming out of Rutland. There are many services that we have in this community that are housed in Rutland and serve Bennington County. This is not a discussion about the merger. This is a discussion about a municipal grant to help them do the merger well. Okay? Any more comments about this proposal from the board? All right. Anyone in the audience that would like to address this? If so, please state your name and town you live in and your thoughts.
Sarah Beth Ward, Bennington. So this was confidential, so the board was not able to know about it. Then why did Jeannie find out about it and not the rest of the board members? Why was it just Jeannie?
You'd have to ask Kat and Jeannie that question.
But I thought it was confidential.
I can respond to
Okay.
that. So I am board chair. And Kat said, I want to let you know something that we're considering doing so that, before we haven't decided we're doing it yet, but I want to let you know that it's happening and any concerns that you have.
And just to put a button on that, I mean, that's essentially part of the due diligence process, is reaching out to members of our community, sharing the plans, having that opportunity for feedback from selected community leaders so that we are integrating, we are bringing all the conversations to the table through the merger, frankly, negotiation stage of due diligence, and we're really fully representing the concerns of the community. So that's what that was absolutely a part of.
You have to be at the mic so that Cat
The
TV.
rest of the board could be trusted too if it was confidential.
If it were,
Just
so,
to pick one person to discuss it with, I find that unusual.
well, it's not finding one person, it's the chair. But I will say that there are times when we go into executive session when there are town matters. This is not a town matter. This is a merger among 3 nonprofits. So if it's a town matter, we do go into executive session and say, here's what's in the works, it hasn't been finalized, we want everybody to know. You cannot speak about it in public. That is why we're talking about it in executive session, where we do not take minutes and we do not take notes. So this is a very different situation. This is 3 nonprofits that are merging. The only reason they are coming here is because the grant that they're applying for has to pass through the town in order for them to apply for it. That is the only reason they're here. Any other questions? You had a question too. Yes, sir? Okay.
I just
Yes?
want to add to what you said.
Okay.
If Jeannie had shared that with us, then it's no longer confidential. Because we couldn't share it in executive session because it's not town business. So for her to share it with us, then it would need to be in an open meeting because we're not allowed to communicate like that. So there was no other option.
Yes, please.
Shirley Adams, Bennington. Just a question. I think I heard you say that you got a planning grant through Rutland. So doing it through Bennington, is that double dipping?
Bennington and West Rutland, actually. Our budget is pretty hefty. Like I said, it's over $400,000. We did go to the Agency of Commerce and Community Development. Alex Farrell is the commissioner of that agency, and asked him for his support, and he agreed that it would be appropriate for the 3 towns to apply.
Any other questions from the public? All right, I think let's call the vote then. So we need a vote to sign the grant application
Yes.
for this. Okay, so the motion, what is the motion that we need?
The motion would be to adopt a resolution allowing this applicant to apply for a grant of $60,000.
I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Thank you. Any further discussion among the board?
We normally see the resolution. We normally have it in our packet.
Is the resolution, do you have the resolution?
I have a resolution for you to sign here tonight, yes.
You want him to read it?
No.
And
I'm just making a point.
That wasn't attached to the memorandum you received?
No. Yeah, maybe. I think it might have
Also
actually
for,
been attached. I didn't print both of them out.
The one from Shannon?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I clearly missed that.
It might have been attached.
This came late to us, so it didn't make the packet, and Shannon needed to get it out because this hearing had been warned.
In the email, when she told us that she wasn't going to be present tonight, that information was included in that email.
Well, I feel terrible I missed the memo, but I actually have a
All
really
right,
good
so do
reason
you
that I
want to,
didn't.
would you read the
that I
resolution
did.
out loud, just so that everybody has
Are you
it?
sure?
Since clearly a lot of people didn't get the memo either.
Do we have time? Okay. Single applicant, whereas the town of Bennington, hereinafter, the applicant is applying for a grant under the Vermont Community Development Program VCDP planning grant for Shire's housing merger, and whereas it is necessary that an application be made, this fly is in love with me, be made and agreements be entered into with the state of Vermont. Now therefore be it resolved that the applicant possesses the legal authority as defined in the State Act 10 VSA 683 to apply for the grant and to administer the program, and that the applicant apply for a grant under the terms and conditions of said program and agree hereby to enter into certificates of and assurances thereof. And the applicant has a duly adopted a municipal county plan, current plan, date adopted October 6, 2015, and that the project is consistent with said plan. And that the applicant has received documentation from the Regional Planning Commission that the project is consistent with the regional plan, and that Shannon Barsotti is hereby authorized to be contact person as such to provide on behalf of the applicant all documents and information necessary for the completion of said application and to provide such coordination as may be necessary for said application. And that Stuart Hurd, Bennington Town Manager, who is either the Chief Executive Officer, as defined in 10 VSA 683, paragraph 8, or is the Town Manager, the City Manager, or the Town Administrator, is hereby designated to serve as the Municipal Authorizing Official, MAO, for the Grants Management Online System and Telegrants, and that it is understood that if the application is funded, the receipt of CDBG funds as federal funds pass through the state of Vermont may require that an audit of the applicant be conducted under the provisions of the Single Audit Act as amended, and that CDBG funds may be used to fund only a limited portion of the audit cost. Passed this date by the legislative body, Town of Bennington.
All right, thank you. Well read. All right.
I'm surprised.
So, all right, so all those in favor?
I'm still in discussion, right?
Yes, we can be still in
Yep.
discussion. Yes, go ahead.
So for discussion, we're public hearing, I believe our process was a public hearing, then we wait till the next meeting to vote.
No, that isn't our process. Our process is
Their
that
process
if we have
changed?
something that, no, if something has, if something that we are deliberating is, we want more feedback on, then we do it, but not for municipal resolution. We've never done that for municipal resolution.
Excuse me, can I say something from the audience?
Actually, we've passed that point. I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry, Mike, but we have passed that point. So go ahead. So no, this would not, a resolution is not to allow a pass-through grant to come is not something we would do a two-meeting discussion on. Any other discussion?
I'm just confused as to public, not confused, I guess public hearing to me is public hearing, and then we waited till the next meeting.
No, we've done many, Shannon has done many public hearings here where she's asked us to sign something, and we have.
Public hearings have separate purposes. I think said another way, all we are doing is authorizing or not the application for a pass-through grant. We're not making a decision on behalf of the town. That may require a two-step process, but this, in my experience on the board and paying attention, is just a presentation. We were lucky.
Point of order, you haven't decided anything yet. I think the audience-
I'm sorry, we have passed public
Excuse
comment
me.
on this.
I was speaking.
Please, and we are back.
I do understand what we're doing, I'm just,
I was trying to help us all understand the difference between the
Okay.
two types of examples that you use, Sarah.
All right. Any other comments from the board? All right, let's vote on this motion. All those in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. I'm going to ask for a roll call. Who's saying, who says aye? Sarah, Jeannie, Ed, Tom, Jean. Okay. All those opposed, please say nay.
Nope.
That would be Nancy and Clark. Any abstentions? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you very much.
Thank you for being here.
Appreciate it. Yes, thank you very much.
And I know I shouldn't take any more time, but I just want to say, There has been a lot going on at Shires in the last month and a half since I announced that I was leaving, and that has been its own thing. We've had some major staff events that have also really limited capacity. So please, if you're looking for who to cast some blame on that this announcement didn't get rolled out, I will take the blame. Probably I should have done a better job. Shannon has always been a great partner to Shires Housing for affordable housing development. She stepped in, she helped Shires at a moment of great difficulty and staff capacity to get this forward. So thank you so much to you guys, to Shannon, for moving this forward.
Thank you both. All right, next up, Bennington County Regional Commission. Mark Anders is here to talk about traffic calming measures, which I don't believe there might not be a single neighborhood in this community that has not communicated, either by coming to a select board meeting or emailing us or stopping us in the frozen food aisle at the grocery store to say that there is speeding and often a lot of noise from traffic noise in their neighborhoods. So this is a first step. This is not designed for us to say yay or nay to anything that Mark presents today. This is really in preparation for us to start thinking about this at budget time, because any traffic calming measures we take will probably cost money.
Excuse me. Jeannie, didn't you say at the last meeting we were going to get an update on Benmont Avenue tonight?
No, I said that we were having Mark Anders come and talk generally about traffic calming measures.
Oh, I thought I heard Benmont Avenue.
So, hi, I'm Mark Anders. I'm the Senior Transportation Planner at the Bennington County Regional Commission, also known as BCRC. So thank you very much to the Select Board for allowing me to talk about traffic calming tonight. So I'm here to talk about traffic calming, which is transportation planner jargon that means slowing down cars. This photo is of a crash outside my house on the Monument Ave extension 2 weeks ago. I'll show details of this crash in a little bit. This is my tech person, Aaron. This photo is a crash outside my house on the Monument Ave extension 2 weeks ago. I'll show details of this crash in a little bit, but just to illustrate, it's no secret that the Monument Ave extension residents have asked the Select Board for traffic calming, so I'm just here to give professional insight into what that looks like in general, and what it might look like in particular in Bennington moving forward from today. So tonight, the BCRC is asking the Select Board to give us the green light to work with DPW to design and budget a pilot project for traffic calming in Bennington. We're also asking the Select Board to weigh in on a location for that pilot project, and perhaps that could be the Monument Ave extension. Over the long term, we would present that pilot plan and budget to you again at a future meeting and ask for your approval before constructing it. No matter what the location is, we will be studying speed and traffic volume before and after the implementation and will report back to you on it. Also important, we will work with residents to make sure a majority approve of the project first. After the pilot study is complete, sorry, I have to figure out how to scroll this. After the pilot study is complete and we have data to report back, sometime in the distant future, we also want to work with the Select Board to design an official town policy for traffic calming so we can continue to benefit from this work. So many of the 17 towns and villages I work in are grappling with speeding and traffic volume issues. BCRC gets lots of complaints about speeding and traffic volume. I know you do too on the Select Board, as Jeannie has mentioned. The Monument Ave Extension residents are here to speak to this today. This photo was taken on the Monument Ave Extension showing a Massachusetts resident speeding in a large, heavy vehicle. The license plate tells me that they were likely using Monument Ave as a cut-through to avoid Route 7 on the way home. This street was not intended for high-speed cut-through traffic, but new map technology like Waze and Google Map routes them that way, and they tend to disobey our speed limit laws. This creates quality of life problems for pedestrians, bikes, kids, pets, and recently, with high-speed crashes that sail right over our lawns. Like this crash, which happened right across the street from me a couple weeks ago. This is my photo. My neighbor said you could hear this car speeding before you could hear it crashing. It was going so fast. The passenger side wheel hit the culvert before Meadowbrook Drive, and it launched the car into the air. It left some rear bumper at the top of the stop sign, which you can see. Then it sailed along and broke a utility pole into 3 pieces with a point of impact high in the air before coming to rest. You don't get that kind of air if you're following the 30-mile-per-hour speed limit. Fortunately, this driver walked away from that crash. It's also a good thing my neighbor wasn't mowing his lawn or that his grandchildren weren't playing there, as they often do. To add some numbers, I studied 10 years of VTrans crash data in Bennington. Over that period, there were more than 4,000 total auto crashes. 777 of them produced at least 1 injury. Multiple people can be injured in 1 injury crash, so the number of injuries is likely higher. 10 of those crashes resulted in at least 1 fatality. This is a big public safety issue, and we know that an important role of the Select Board is protecting residents' right to remain safe. As they can see in that picture, speeding increases the likelihood of crashes and the severity of crashes. But speeding is not just a problem on days when big crashes occur, but every day, pedestrians, kids, parents, cyclists worry about how to avoid getting hit by speeding cars. This photo was one I took on the Monument Ave extension. The pedestrian here is a local doctor, one of my neighbors, who commutes to his shift at the hospital on foot. Many residents of the Monument Ave extension feel they can't choose to commute by bike or foot because they're afraid of getting hit by a car. Same goes for many other roads in Bennington. One of my goals as a transportation planner is to give residents back their freedom to decide how they're going to commute. And sometimes this means making small changes or tweaks to roadways which can help drivers obey the laws of the land. There are many ways that professional transportation planners and engineers make roadways like this safer. I wrote a condensed 7-page guide with lots of pictures that describes those in human-readable language. This guide is published on the BCRC website and is also in your agenda packet, I think.
No.
The remainder of the presentation is going to lay out what's in the BCRC's guide and explain it for you. When we talk about tweaking roadways, I'd like to show this set of photos. Both of these images show local streets with single-family houses. When I ask people which road they're more likely to follow the speed limit on, it's universally the one at right. A few features make it that way, and none of them is a speed limit sign. For example, the one on the right has trees right near the edge of the road, parked cars, lack of a center line, and is a narrower street. Those features make the street on the right what we call self-enforcing. Motorists drive slower because of the way it feels, not because of the speed limit. That's a general principle. You design for the speed you want. Here are 2 local examples. These roads have a lot in common. Both of them have 11-foot travel lanes and a double yellow center line with not much of a shoulder. They probably invite drivers to go similar speeds because they look the same. But the one on the top has a 50-mile-per-hour speed limit. It's Route 7A. The bottom one has a 30-mile-per-hour speed limit, and you can probably guess it's the Monument Ave extension. The 30-mile-per-hour road's superficial similarity to a 50-mile-per-hour state highway encourages drivers to travel much faster. There are lots of ways we could make Monument Ave feel different than Route 7A. For example, narrowing the travel lane widths to 10 feet from 11 feet, which can be done cheaply with white paint. There are other ways too. The small tweaks we have discussed so far. Did I skip one? Yes, I did. Sorry. The small tweaks we've discussed so far, removing the double yellow center line. And by the way, one study showed an average reduction in speed of up to 8.8 miles per hour just by doing this. Narrowing the travel lane widths without removing asphalt, just repositioning the white lines. Another traffic calming measure is radar feedback signs. This is not an automatic ticketing system, just showing you your own speed. They cannot mail you a ticket. Studies show a 2 to 11 mile per hour speed reduction, but this may fade with time as drivers get used to the idea that they can't get a ticket. A temporary one was put up on Monument Ave, not the extension, this summer, so we already have one working in town. Small tweaks like changing the painted lines or putting up feedback signs can have an effect on traffic speeds. But again, the effects of radar feedback can fade with time. One thing that forces drivers to slow down long-term, and the gold standard discussed in the BCRC report, are what we call vertical deflection techniques. You probably call them speed bumps. But a speed bump is something specific. It's the small raised bump in front of the car in the picture. You see them in parking lots. Because of their dramatic effect, they are not used on public roadways. A speed bump is different from a speed hump, which is the large, wider thing below the car. We're not even talking about or considering speed bumps. Just speed humps and speed tables, which have a much broader base and are safer for vehicles. So keep this in mind. We are not talking about speed bumps, but speed humps. What are speed humps? Speed humps are 12 to 14 feet long. They're just 3 to 3.5 inches high at the highest point. Vehicles slow to 20 to 25 miles per hour at the properly designed and spaced speed humps. Proper design and spacing is key. You've got to have more than one of these in a row. For example, see here. This seems to me like an example of a road where planners have tried everything. They've removed the center line. Looks like they've tried narrower lanes, even though it's still too wide. They put in a speed hump. But the problem in this picture, it looks like they just put in one of them. What do you think that driver's going to do when they get over the hump? They're probably going to go just speed up again. Engineering guidelines, like the ones used by the Federal Highway Administration, say that to be effective, you need to have not just one speed hump, but a series of them. There are guidelines for spacing and placement that I lay out in my report in detail. Another potential design issue here. You can see from the tire tracks at right how drivers are tending to go right around the speed hump. There's one reason to put up those yellow diamond signs that say speed hump at the right edge of the pavement, so you can't go off with one wheel off the road. Here's an in the wild example in Lebanon, New Hampshire, a place that sees just as many snowplows as Bennington. By the way, and these speed humps are not a problem for their snowplows. Dulac Street has a series of 6 speed humps, and here's what they look like. The guardrail is preventing people from going around it on the right, but on the left, notice the sign just next to the pavement, just like the one on the right. It reads speed table. The speed table sign gets stolen a lot. The speed table signs get stolen a lot less than speed hump ones. But speed tables actually are a slightly different thing than speed humps. So let's talk about speed tables. Speed tables are what you get when you stretch out a speed hump to be twice as long. You can go a little faster over a speed table than a speed hump, about 25 to 30 miles per hour, because they support the entire wheelbase of a vehicle. That makes them better for emergency vehicles, better on primary emergency response routes. Speed tables are often used with crosswalks. Speed table plus crosswalk is a raised crosswalk. This creates a level crossing that expands access for pedestrians, especially if you need a rolling device. Think beyond the Monument Ave extension. Something like this could be a good solution for a place like Orchard Road in front of the Molly Stark Elementary School. Speed humps and speed tables are effective. In locations where a series of speed humps or tables were installed, studies have shown a 74% reduction in the number of vehicles traveling 5 or more miles per hour over the speed limit, an 81% reduction in the number of vehicles traveling 10 or more miles per hour over the speed limit, and a 20% reduction in traffic volume. This means some drivers choose to take other roads, maybe highways, that are better designed for higher speeds. Just to summarize, the traffic calming measures we discussed are removing the center line, narrowing travel lanes, radar feedback signs, speed humps, and speed bumps. Again, BCRC is asking the Select Board to give us the green light to work with DPW to design and budget a pilot project for traffic calming in Bennington. We're also asking the Select Board to weigh in on a location for that pilot project. And some people here will probably ask for the Monument Ave extension. Over the long term, we would present that pilot plan and budget to you again at a future meeting and ask for your approval before constructing it. No matter what the location is, we will be studying speed and traffic volume before and after implementation, and we will report back to you. Also important, we will work with residents to make sure a majority approve of the project first. After this pilot study is complete and we have data to report back, sometime in the distant future, we also want to work with the Select Board to design an official town policy for traffic calming so we can continue to benefit from this work. These are some locations where residents have contacted the town about speeding, and I know there are many more than this, but these are three I'll focus on. East Road between Route 279 and Houghton Lane saw, between 2010 and 2024, 12 crashes, and the yellow dots are property damage only crashes, and the red dots are injury crashes. So out of those 12 crashes, 7 crashes were property damage only, and 5 were injury. On South Stream Road between Morgan Street and Beach Street, there were 12 crashes, 6 property damage only crashes, and 6 injury crashes. And we notice a cluster around the South Stream Morgan Street intersection. On Monument Ave Extension, over the same time period, we saw 34 crashes, 23 property damage only crashes, and 11 injury crashes, including the crash you saw depicted in my photo from a couple weeks back. As I mentioned, I live on Monument Ave Extension. Last year, I was approached by neighbors about traffic calming. Seeing my neighbors interested in traffic calming, one of the things I think about in my professional life as a transportation planner, gave me the impetus to produce this report and make this proposal today. Alongside that 7-page report I summarize here, BCRC also produced an example on paper of what a proposal for traffic calming might look like on a street like Monument Ave Extension. Again, I chose this location for the example because I know my neighbors wanted to see what was possible, and because it's in my backyard and easy for me to study. This example, which is in your agenda packet too, I think, could serve as a basis for the pilot project proposal. If the Select Board thinks the Monument Ave Extension is the right place for this first pilot project, or it could simply serve as an illustration. Here's a snapshot from that proposal. Speed tables we propose are shown in purple. Radar feedback signs we propose just south of Southshire Drive. Once the road is repaved, we propose no center lines and 10-foot travel lanes. The trial area box at right encloses the section of the road between Southshire and Dewey Street, and this is the area I would recommend focusing the pilot efforts on. That is the section with the most speeding, the most crashes, and also has a lot of pedestrians. Southshire and Meadowbrook are residential feeder streets. So that's it.
Thank you. Thank you. That was really helpful. I'm sorry to say that none of us have seen any of the materials that you referenced.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
So I would hope that before we can really discuss it, I think we'll have a conversation now, but I think we will all want to see that information. So I'm not sure if you need to forward it or Stuart.
Oh, I can forward it.
Okay.
We didn't receive it.
Okay. So once we get it, we'll.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Nancy?
A couple of years ago, wasn't it the BCRC that wanted to increase the speed limit on the East Road and the South Stream Road?
No.
Who was asking to do that?
So there were studies. Can you talk to that?
There was a study done of the speed limit on East Road, and the average speed limit would have dictated that the speed limit be raised from 35 to 40. And I believe that was a study that BCRC participated in. It wasn't that you were recommending the speed be increased.
We just took the data. And that gets into the 85th percentile speed, which is way too in the weeds, but basically VTrans uses the 85th percentile speed to set speed limits, so we were just providing the data. And
I know for years we've been working on calming the traffic when roads are getting repaved and sidewalks done, the streets are getting narrowed. And I also know a lot of this traffic calming ties directly with bike paths and pedestrians. And several years ago, the board approved all these zoning plans titled Bennington More Walkable, and it should have had bikeable. And I know there are people in here tonight to talk about what the traffic calming down on the section on Benmont, concerns they want to raise about that. And I think before we get into another pilot project, I really think it's important that the people involved show us the map of where you want the bike paths around Bennington. I've been asking for 5 or 6 or 7 years. That's going to involve traffic calming. I can go and look online at Brattleboro Bike Paths. They show all the different things you can use. They describe it. They show them in different roads. And I think this is something that's already been planned behind the scenes. So I'd like the public to hear those plans before we hop into another pilot project.
All right, so Nancy, let's, Mark, do you want to speak to, and I'm thinking, I don't know if it's Dan or you, speak to the proposed bike paths and whether they've been done behind closed doors?
So the town plan has for years included a bike ped master plan, and it's in the town plan on the website. It's been there for over maybe 2 decades. So it's evolved over time, but it's been in the town plan for that long.
Yeah. And so so I think to Nancy's question, I'm assuming that when we look at traffic calming measures, we should be looking at whether people are walking, biking. I mean, East Road, when East Road folks came, and equal number of folks came, their concern was that they do a lot of walking on that road, and it really is a neighborhood for them. And people speed past the middle school up to the transfer station or beyond, and it's quite unsafe. And so I think if you can talk a little bit about sort of how your thinking as a planner works in terms of biking, walking, and generally trying to calm the traffic. I mean, how those things work together and how we should be thinking about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mentioned very briefly the raised crosswalk in front of the Molly Stark School. That's an example. So VCRC and the town put a path between Orchard Village and Willowbrook to help the kids from Orchard Village get to the Molly Stark Elementary School. And we're also thinking about creating a path to connect to the rail trail along Orchard Road. That's in the plan. And I think that would be a great place for a traffic calming project, the raised crosswalk in front of the Molly Stark Elementary School. So that's an example of, kind of finding these places where people are using the road, but where it's not safe, and figuring out tweaks to make it safer.
So is there
a lot
list
of opportunities for that?
So Mark, do you have a list? I mean, that's a great example, and yeah, we probably should have done that yesterday, and it would have been great, and the school system probably should have said, can you do something like this for us as well? But, is there a list somewhere of sort of obvious places? It's different than the pilot that you're talking about. These are more where places in town that we should be paying attention to that are sort of one-offs, like in front of Molly Stark School. Yeah. Is there such a list? Are we just oblivious to this?
There's not a list of traffic calming projects. We haven't done much traffic calming in rural towns. It's very common in places like Burlington. I mentioned New Hampshire. I think traffic calming is kind of like where we were with roundabouts about 10 years ago. There's just not that much experience, and that's why I recommend a pilot project. They can be tricky to construct. You really have to get the details right. You make them too high, you use the wrong cross-section, it's not going to work, it's going to be hard to plow. So that's why I thought a really small pilot project somewhere, we could get some experience, the public could get some exposure to it, we could see if we like it, see if we don't like it. That's why I kind of recommend going slow. Then we'll get more experience doing it, and we can start identifying other places.
Great. Sarah, anything?
Janie?
Ed?
There are citizens here with questions and comments about the traffic calming that has been done on the Benmont Avenue project.
So Nancy, the rule is that once you've asked your questions, other people get to ask their questions before we come back to you so that nobody monopolizes the conversation. So Ed, Tom?
Yeah. How long would you expect this pilot project to take, or whatever we're talking about?
I think if the DPW comes up with a small budget, we can do a little bit of engineering. My hope would be that next construction season, we could put in a small pilot project. So next summer.
Okay, but we could start it next summer. How long do you think the project itself?
Oh, how long would the project stay up?
When can we start getting data?
I think we would know a lot after the first year. You're really supposed to, for crash data, you're really supposed to look at a long time period, like 5 years. That's how long it would take to really know if it was effective at stopping crashes. We would know right away if it slowed down traffic. We could just do another traffic study with our radar reader. So, yeah, so I guess the ideal scenario would be put it in next summer, do a traffic study at the end of the summer to compare before and after data, and then look at a long time period to see if it actually did reduce crashes.
Clark? My question is, the 3 roads you cited, was there a equality in volume, or was one of those roads more heavily traveled than the others, or was it the incidence of accidents that had occurred on those streets?
They're all pretty similar roads. I think what they all have in common is they tend to be used for cut-through traffic, and the engineering guides I've read say that cut-through traffic tends to speed more than local traffic, so that may be one reason why residents have complained so much about those particular roads. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I was just wondering how those 3 streets were identified.
Yeah, well, my neighbors talked about Monument Ave, and then, Jeannie and the town staff mentioned East Road and South Stream Road. And I've actually heard those too.
For both those both those streets.
Yeah. I just seem to hear a lot about Gage Street, that's all.
Yeah, no, I mean, there are many places where this could work in Bennington. And
well, and I'm thinking there's someone else in the audience that came to us about School Street, and, in town is equally concerning.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And that traffic calming would look a little bit different than the more rural roads, but in some ways it's easier to do in town.
So the idea of maybe one of these pilot studies, maybe have 2, where they were looking at in-town roads versus a peripheral cut-through roads also. Because
I was thinking the one in front of Molly Stark School would be the kind of the in-town trial, and then one of the other roads that I mentioned for the more rural roads. But obviously we'll do whatever the select board wants. We're just here making suggestions.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I was told, and clearly I was misinformed, that the double lines were required.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that. A lot of people think that they're not required on collector roads with traffic volumes with 3,000 vehicles or less per day.
Yeah, I have a friend, there's like 4 houses on her dead end, and there's a double, and I'm really glad to hear that. I thought it was,
need 'em.
there was no way around that, so that's great.
It's 3,000?
3,000 vehicles per day is the threshold for a double yellow line on a collector road.
I'm wondering if someone should, be in touch with the police department, where they give a lot of tickets. I don't know if they would have information on roads to choose based on data that they have.
I think that's a really good idea to talk to the Chief Doucette.
Once in a while, I have a good idea. And I'm assuming, based on where I live, that if you reduce speed, you're going to reduce noise.
Yes.
Okay.
You are going to reduce noise. I have a really in-the-weeds slide about that, which I'm not going to bore you with, but basically there's 2 kinds of noise from traffic. There's engine noise and there's rolling tire noise. And the faster the vehicle goes, the more and more rolling tire noise there is. It just keeps getting louder and louder. And that kind of takes over around 30 miles an hour. So slower traffic is quieter traffic. That's the simple answer to your question.
And you can't do anything about the hills when someone needs a new muffler. I know you can't change that.
You can't change the hills, unfortunately, no.
That's all I've got.
Okay. Yes, Stu.
Mark, as you know, the state of Vermont puts the yellow lines on, excuse me, all Class 2 roadways on an annual basis, or at least every other year. And that is, I'm assuming that's for a reason, but it may not be a justifiable reason.
I've had words with the state about that.
How'd you done?
And I think maybe they'll come around. A lot of things are done just because that's the way they've always been done, not because anyone's really taken a hard look. Do we really need to do this? There are a lot of things like that in the state, unfortunately.
And my second question would be, how about inclement weather? I know you're eliminating the center line of the road.
Yep.
On a terribly foggy night. Does that create a problem for people trying to stay in their lane or stay on the road for that matter?
It's a good question, and I don't know any data about inclement weather, but the lines that really do make roads safer are the fog lines. Those are the lines that keep people from driving off the road. The double yellow line, I think to a lot of people, it makes it just look like a highway. When you remove that double yellow line, it creates a little bit of uncertainty for drivers. You pay more attention. You don't just go on autopilot. I think that's the reason psychologically why double yellow lines increase traffic speed.
Super. Other questions from board members? All right.
No, wait,
questions?
I got one.
Oh, okay, go ahead. Sorry.
I would tend to lean toward, and obviously we're not going to take any action tonight, I hope, because we haven't had time to study what you presented to us. And no disrespect to our folks on Monument Avenue, because people do drive too fast on Monument Avenue, but we do see it on virtually every street in town. I've heard people across town, no matter what street they're living on. When you mentioned the Molly Stark area, as a potential study point for an in-town location, I would kind of tend to lean toward having it in an area that's more densely populated, like a Gage Street or a school street or something like that. That's my initial thought. Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. I mean, there are a lot of places it could work. The reason why we were thinking about the Molly Stark location was just the point that Nancy raised was it kind of works with the path system that we're working on. It would connect the Orchard Village and and I'm blanking on the name of the other apartment complex. Willowbrook Apartments. It would link that with the path that we're considering on Orchard Road to the rail trail. That was why that one kind of percolated to the top, but we're open to lots of suggestions. There are many places in town, I think, that would benefit from traffic calming. And I think that would be the great thing about doing a couple of good pilot projects. We could really kind of iron it out and perfect it before we developed a policy about where these things would go in.
Gene.
I just thought of something else. Is there a reason to choose a straight road versus a curvy road, or not? Does that weigh into your thoughts on when choosing roads?
Yeah. So BCRC does speed studies all over the county. We have speed camera that's just booked from spring to late fall. And straightaways definitely are a speeding issue. So straight roads you're probably going to see more speeding on straight roads. Often curves lead to crashes.
Yeah, and I, for one, will not walk on Monument Avenue for the very reason, and it's because it's curved.
Yeah, that's right.
You're blind,
Yeah.
and the cars can't see you, and you can't see them. And I'm constantly going like one side to the other, so I have a better. And then I just decided I'll walk somplease else.
So, Gene, that's actually really interesting. So, something we should be thinking about is: are we in traffic calming? Do we want to think more about high crash areas that are curvy versus straightaways like East Road, where you can take off and go forever.
Yeah.
And people, they talked about jumping into ditches to avoid speeding cars because there's no sidewalk.
Right.
But I think that's an interesting thing for us to think about as well. Just if we're going to do a pilot, what's the best kind?
Can I jump in here?
So one thing I didn't mention is the engineering guidance about where to put traffic calming. When you do a speed study, if 25% of the traffic is exceeding the speed limit by 5 miles, let me get this right. If 10%, you know what, I'm going to show you a slide. been a long day.
Mark, while you're pulling that up, let me just comment that the speed in a straightaway is different but bad. I live on the other end of Monument Avenue at the straightaway, and that's, Mark, where we had that speed cart placed last summer, right in front of my house. Showed that a speed cart reduced the average speed by several miles per hour. Actually brought us much closer to legal on that road. So my question to you and to anybody else who might know the answer is, we have one of those speed carts in the town of Bennington, and it is used obviously as strategically as it possibly can. It also is one of a very few among neighboring towns, so we tend to lend it from time to time. Should some effort be put on funding additional temporary speed, like that speed cart? They're expensive.
Yeah, I think that would be good. You know, that might be a question for our chief to set. And I would recommend installing permanent radar feedback signs in some locations too. They're relatively inexpensive. So I think the more of these things, the better. The issue with them is, since there's no real enforcement tied to them, the effect can fade over time. I think that's what most of the studies show. And some people, frankly, are going to just ignore them. I mean, like the kid who drove down Monument Ave at like 80 miles an hour isn't going to care that, he got the blinky red thing. And those are the drivers that are really dangerous.
But for those of us who do care and need a reminder, there happens to be one in Manchester at the junction of Main Street and Barnumville Road, and they changed the text on it by season. So if you're speeding at Christmas time, the red sign comes up naughty. If you're going the speed limit or lower, the green sign comes up nice. And I'm interested in what it's going to say today.
Right.
So I pay attention to it.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's, there's like two kinds of speeders. There's the kind that don't intend to speed, and I think a lot of us in the room are probably like that, and those remind us that, we're going too fast. And then there's the kind that really just don't care, who are the really dangerous ones.
All right, show us your slide.
Can't find it, and I think it was like if 10%, do you remember what the stat is? It's in your report. Sorry, it's in my report. Basically, there's three statistics that determine what is a good place for traffic calming. It has to do with the percentage of vehicles speeding 5 miles an hour or more over the speed limit, the percentage of vehicles 10 miles an hour over the speed limit, and the percentage of and the amount of speed of the 85th percentile that's over the speed limit. It's in the report. I apologize, I can't remember the numbers.
Well, but Mark, do you have that? That would be helpful in deciding where to do a pilot.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's 25% over 5% over the speed limit, and I think it's 10%, 5% over the speed limit, and I think it's 7 miles an hour for the 85th percentile.
But do you know that for particular areas of town?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We like Monument Ave.
Okay.
We've done speed studies up and down Monument Ave, and we have very precise speed data. We keep the speed cameras out for a week, and we know all of the top speeds, average speed. We know all that stuff.
So do you know that for like East Road, South Stream Road?
We don't. They're on our queue, and as I said, we have 17 towns and villages that are like calling us all the time for speed studies. So there's a long line for these cameras, but we did do all of Monument Ave all the way to the monument recently.
Okay.
But we will do East Road, and any other location that the select board would like us to look at, we can do.
Okay. Any other questions from us? We'll go to the audience. All right. Anyone in the audience want to ask a question? Yes, Martha, come on up.
First of all, I want to say thank you for that amazing presentation. It's my favorite one that I've had presented at any select board meeting. Very excited. So first of all, I would like to say...
Martha, introduce yourself.
Oh, sorry. Martha Mackey, Bennington, Vermont. Question about the speed tables. So I'd said this a while back, that our crosswalks are getting worn out far before the time when they need to be repainted, which presents a hazard. And I had suggested that we change them into speed humps or speed tables. I also am concerned about the levels of noise in town, and I was wondering, I imagine if you were to have one of those, say at like the end of School Street, going into Main Street, and you have these cars that like to rev up and screech out into Main Street, that those tables would probably help. So that's just one thought.
Help how? Help.
Because you're not going to be able to screech out into the street if you have to go
prevent screeching.
over. Yeah, so hopefully reduce noise in that way. And I also I feel like some people on the board were expressing this, that I don't necessarily feel like we need to wait for a pilot project for some of these. Like a crosswalk on Main Street with a speed hump is pretty standard. It's not really that different from in Burlington, so why not just go for it next time we're redoing the crosswalk lines? And my final comment question is, with the narrowing of the streets, would we also be able to maybe put in a protected bike lane? I think that would be really fantastic. So again, thank you for this really great presentation. Loved it.
Great, thank you.
Do you have, so are we putting in protected bike lanes anywhere?
On which Main Street, or what street?
Sorry, I meant on Monument Ave.
Protected bike lanes are tricky. They're good in some locations and not good in other locations, and you really have to take it a case-by-case basis. I probably wouldn't recommend it on Monument Ave for reasons that are sort of technical, but basically bike lanes on really hilly roads are not a good idea, because you want to ride more in the center of the road. But say a road like Benmont Ave, or there are a lot of roads in town where protected bike lanes would work very well. So I think in general it's a really good idea.
Other questions? Yes, please.
Sure.
Yep.
My name is Charles Dewey. I live on Cowpath Lane, which is not a public road. It is my driveway. But I often go down the road past the hospital entrance, and that 30-mile-an-hour feedback, radar feedback sign really works. I've noticed people slow right down, and they go at 30 miles an hour the rest of the way into Old Bennington. And the cars that come from Williamstown side, I have to be very careful about crossing the road to get my mail, because they accelerate, cars and pickup trucks, a lot of pickup trucks, from the intersection of Dewey Street and Monument Avenue, up the hill, over the hill, down the hill. Some of them keep on accelerating right over to the entrance of the hospital. I mean, they keep going straight, but they go very fast. And some idiots go extremely fast, and there's nothing to stop them. But I would suggest some more of those radar feedback signs, so that people can see that they're way over the speed limit. 50 miles an hour is no problem for them to speed down through that flat area where the hospital entrance is.
Thank you. John, did you have a question or comment?
My name is John Goodrich. I live on Monument Avenue in Bennington. And I think I'm against speed bumps on Monument Avenue, not on some other roads. They might work well.
Do you mean speed bumps, speed tables, or
no,
speed humps?
Speed humps.
Speed humps, okay.
But I am against them on Monument Avenue. But I am for even permanent radar-controlled signs and better signs. If you go on Monument, even if you're coming up Route 30 miles an hour is not there, coming out in one place. They don't even know that at first. And they should know that. So I think signs are very important. I agree with you all about the police. It would be nice to have somebody push the police to be there because I recognize that they slow down for weeks after a couple of arrests happen. And so having the police be part of this, I think, is an important thing. I looked into having some kind of a radar recording and tell people you're recording the radar. If there is such a thing, I know there is, but if there's something we could do, I don't know. But that would be another very controlling factor even for the guy that was driving down, having lived fairly close to you, and taking off at 80 miles an hour or at 60 miles an hour. We could slow them up. So I'm for better signs, permanent radar controls, and police. Not overall police, but police control of the traffic.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. Oh, do you want to just ask? Just one sec. I think Ed wanted to ask you a clarifying question.
Mark, what Mr. Goodrich just said about recording speed leads me to the question that I know that I've asked and have heard the answer, but the public might want to hear it. The state of Vermont does not allow automatic ticket issuing from a machine, if I am correct.
Many states in the United States do. I think it's like 27 states allow automatic speed enforcement from and unfortunately, in my opinion, is not one of those states. It's extremely effective. You don't have to put up tables or things like that.
So without the enforcement piece of an automatic ticket being issued, the value of recording one's speed probably is greatly reduced, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yep.
I mean, it may have some utility. One of the reasons why some states have not adopted automated speed enforcement is privacy issues. And, so if you did have a camera that recorded people's license plates and gave them a non-fine, then you would still have that privacy issue. So it's like, why not just do a fine with it? And most of the jurisdictions that do it, it's not, you don't lose points on your license. It's not a moving violation. It's like a parking ticket. You get like a $20 or something like that fee. Yeah.
Okay. Yes, sir. We'll come back to you, John. Everybody gets one turn before anyone gets a second.
Hi, I'm Mark Wilson. I am a Shasbury resident, but I do own Bennington Tire Corporation down here. Mark, is the speed calming project that's out in the bottom of Benmont, was that recommended by you guys? Or was that recommended by Stu, by you guys? Because this is a speed calming project that you've done at the bottom of Benmont Avenue.
Yeah, the Benmont Avenue project is the first step in the pathway project that will come along Benmont Avenue. As you know, as you come up Benmont Avenue, the sidewalk is essentially a white line with paved at the same elevation as the roadway. Ultimately, the plan is to create a snow shelf, which is basically the green island between the roadway and what would be a bike and pedestrian pathway all the way up along Benmont Avenue.
Now, is this bike and pedestrian pathway the sidewalk itself, or is there going to be an extra lane cut out of what there is in Benmont Avenue now?
No.
Essentially an expanded sidewalk.
Yeah.
A wide sidewalk, essentially.
Can you just say that? So it's an extended sidewalk, a wider sidewalk, okay.
So it's basically going to make Benmont Avenue the same width as we're looking at now down the street by Apollo Fuels?
Without looking at the plans, I couldn't answer that question, but it's not
Dan, can you stand up? Sorry.
Without looking at the plans, I can't answer the exact width versus what's constructed, but I know that it meets or exceeds the lane widths that are set by federal standards.
Well, the lane widths that are set by federal standards have already complicated truck traffic into Apollo Fuels down there. The word I got from Walt Fried was it's cut down his volume by about 20% just by what you've done to this point. It also is, I live on big trucks coming up and down Benmont Avenue. I've done that since 1990 as Bennington Tire, and since 1975 in the tire business down there. All I hear is bad comments on what's happened at that end of Benmont Avenue. It's really detrimental to the traffic that moves up and down Benmont Avenue. Dan, do you know what the last traffic count was on Benmont Avenue? How many cars per day go up and down that street? Not a clue?
Don't
Anybody
know.
here have a
Well, I
clue?
mean, we have the data, but I couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Well, the last
So
one I
is
looked
this a
at...
BCRC? So I'm just wondering who this should be addressed to. Is this state folks, BCRC, town? Who?
Town.
No.
The Benmont Avenue project is a town project. The lane width will be reduced to 10 feet, which is the lane width as you cross the Benmont Avenue Bridge. The purpose of establishing curb cuts was to make that area safer for the traveling public, for the pedestrians, and in fact, Mr. Freed ended up with something like 3 curb cuts where normally state transportation would give him 1. So we tried to take into account the amount of traffic that goes in and out of those gas stations in that facility there. But we took that into account in the design that was used. Yes, we've narrowed the street. The lane width will be 10 feet. It will slow people down. And any of you who, once we get it all paved and striped, you'll see that the widths of the lanes are valid and safe for use.
Well, the last car count that I saw on Benmont Avenue was a few years ago, and it was almost 8,000 cars in 8 hours. Now, if you want to stand on Benmont Avenue right now with a stopwatch without having somebody set up a car count, it's still pretty darn close to that,
There's
maybe
no question.
even more.
Benmont Avenue is a heavily traveled roadway.
And it's heavily traveled by more than just cars that are running through a residential neighborhood. I understand what you're talking about with Monument Avenue. I'm talking about a street that the businesses support industry that's more than just passenger cars running up and down the street.
We understand that.
I hope you take that into consideration on the rest of the street with your curb cuts and things. Understood. It would have been nice if somebody had let business owners know that this project was going to start. Now, it's pretty simple. I know we talk about emails and all the rest, but it seems pretty simple. If I need to get a tax bill like I got today, it's mailed to me, or I get my water bill, or it's always mailed to me. I would think if you're going to do a project as detrimental as that is to truck traffic on Benmont Avenue, we could have at least had a warning mailed to us.
Well, I understand that the affected property owners were provided notice, perhaps not as long notice as they would have liked, but they were provided notice. We didn't go all the way down the street because we're not, at this point, affecting anybody else all the way down Benmont Avenue. There will come a day, though, when the pathway project goes forward, that all the property owners will be notified.
Roughly, when do you think the pathway project's going to make it to my end of Benmont Avenue?
I couldn't tell that question was coming.
At least 2 years.
Yeah.
At least 2 years.
At least 2 years.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mark.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Susan Beal, and I live on actually 215 Bird Hill, which used to be 1601 Monument Avenue, but we were renamed because of a house we're building. And I just, first of all, I want to thank the BCRC, and I want to thank you guys for listening to this. And I wanted to say that I guess it was back in the winter that I realized how frustrated we had become about the increasingly heavy traffic and literally just anxiety every time we pulled out of our driveway. So we wrote a little note and stuck it in everyone's boxes up and down the road and said, do you feel this way too? And pretty much everybody said, yeah, we're really concerned and we are scared pulling in and out of our driveways, and we're fed up being tailgated when we drive the speed limit. I mean, literally, I live right at the intersection practically of Dewey and Monument, but if I'm driving along Monument, by the time I get to my driveway, I'll have sometimes 5, 6 cars right on my bumper. And pulling out, again, it's the same thing. We don't walk. We're not brave enough to bike, generally. So it really is a concern, and I found that my neighbors all felt the same way. And I won't read this, but this is a letter/petition with 31 names on it of our neighbors who are supportive of some version of the BCRC study. I know John mentioned his concern about speed tables, but in general, we have everybody who we wrote notes to asking if they shared our concern are in agreement that we want something like this to happen. And I know that was one of the issues about choosing somewhere to go. Obviously, everybody wants their road to be safe, but I did want to offer this to you with these names. And again,
I mean, you're very welcome to leave that with us, and we can have it photocopied
Should
and
I bring
emailed
it
to
to you
all of
right
us.
now, or just?
You can give it to Stu.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
Hi, I'm Ezra Feldman. I also live on Monument Ave Extension. My name is on that document. And I just wanted to speak very briefly to the question of fairness, because I gather that people on many different streets around Bennington would like to have this happen. This is an argument for yes in my backyard, and it is blatantly partial, and just says, like, I'm very fortunate to have Mark as a neighbor, and it's cool that we have some data on Monument Ave, and I think that everyone in the town should want everywhere in the town to be safe. And rather than trying to study everywhere or find the best place to study, we should start with where we have the data. And then we should do what we can to move quickly to get data and expand traffic calming measures as appropriate to every place where they would help. But that's not a reason not to go now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken? Hi, yes. Yes, come on up.
Thank you. There's a couple of things. I'm all for the people on Monument Avenue. I think they all have a legitimate gripe.
So I just want to say right now, we are not making a decision about where we do a pilot, or even if we do a pilot tonight. So don't go there, please. Okay.
Could you please stop interrupting me every time I speak?
I'm just trying to keep you from saying something that we're not going to be able to deal with.
I'm talking about what Mr. Wilson was talking about, business on Benmont Ave. You've opened up the discussion about slowing down traffic. On Monument Ave, perfectly reasonable. Understand everything they say, all their concerns, okay? But slowing down traffic on Benmont, that's my route to get down to Walmart. I am perfectly safe. There's cars, you learn to cross the street, okay? I'm in a wheelchair, it goes 7 miles an hour at maximum speed. I can do it. I don't think you need to box in all of Benmont in 2 years. Mr. Wilson and the other tire business pays taxes, provides jobs. We need businesses in Bennington. You got Mr. Goodrich's old mill, okay? That needs to be able to get in and out. What you've done by Walt Fried's Apollo, you've screwed them up royally. And I want to ask all the geniuses in this room, when you're coming up from Taco Bell and Aldi's, you're going to have a circular thing there, one of those, what do they call them? Roundabouts, right? How are you going to get roundabouts up onto Benmont Ave, slow them down so slow, you're going to back up traffic all the way down to the other roundabouts?
So I'm sure, it sounds like you were present or either watched the presentation when we did have someone from the state come down a year ago, to talk about a proposal to put in a couple roundabouts, 3, I believe, along there, which is hard, I think, for all of us to imagine what it's going to look like. But you know what? They will have to come back to us. They are the engineers. They'll come back and they'll make their plan. They'll also tell us how in the world we're going to deal with not having traffic on those roads. But that is not tonight's discussion.
Oh, it is discussion.
No, it isn't.
You're going to go over that narrow bridge. He says all of Benmont Ave is going to be no wider than that bridge, virtually, eventually. Stu just said it. Am I wrong? He just said that.
I think there's a difference between lane width and pavement width. You can make lane width with just paint. Pavement width is a different issue. So they'll be much wider than the 10 feet.
I'm talking pavement.
It'll be much wider than the 10 foot.
And the other thing, I haven't driven in several years, but the reason you have a double line is so you can't pass. And Stu was right, somebody said it, if you have a single or no line, and you don't have a single line in the wintertime, no offense, there's a lot of old people up on Monument. No offense, no offense. No.
You can still pass it on double yellow lines in Vermont.
You need a center line, so I don't think this thing with the line thing is it. I wish Vermont would change that other thing that Mr. Goodrich brought up, that you could have cameras around and get people's license plates. Maybe we should ask our legislative body and/or our governor to do that. We might save a lot of money in all of these studies and all of this BS. But I really don't want you to screw up the rest of Benmont Ave. You're going to see what I'm talking about if you ever get those roundabouts, because you're going to have traffic going into a narrow bridge. It just isn't going to work. And you screwed up my way, because I saw a bus pulling out the other day. Actually, a bus driver told me this too. Out of Dufors, and they were taking a right. They couldn't make it. They had to go into the other lane. So some of you 7 ought to go down there and look at it and watch the traffic. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just for the record, Mike, in Vermont, you can pass on a double yellow line if it's safe.
Excuse me?
It's legal to pass on a double yellow in Vermont if it's safe. Yellow lines.
Like I said, I was a long time. Maybe I ought to get that changed back.
All right. Any other comments about traffic calming? Deb. John, you have to wait till... Okay.
Debbie Matt, Bennington. Your speed humps. You said there would be multiple. For them to be effective, there would have to be more than one, if I understood correctly.
Well, this is very engineering, but a speed hump or speed table is only a single point of speed control. So people will slow down right at that spot, but if you want to slow speeds down along a corridor, you need to put in more than one. So
So if, say for example, you've put 2 or 3 down this stretch of highway that I normally go 100 miles an hour on, and now you have these, is there any risk of me becoming airborne or losing
100 miles an hour, you would become airborne, yes.
So there's a penalty for doing it?
Yes.
Thanks, Deb. That was a good point. Anyone else from the audience that would like to share? Go ahead.
I'm David Pearson. I live along Monument Avenue and walk there frequently. And I want to put in a strong plug for narrowing the white lines, because not only would it slow traffic down, when you walk along there or bike along there, you have no way to get out of the lane. If it was just narrowed by 1 foot, that would give, essentially, it's not a sidewalk, but there are places where the guardrail is right here and you can't get off the pavement walking along. And I think that would make a huge difference to the safety.
Thank you. Anyone else that hasn't spoken? Yes, please.
Drew Kiefaber. I also am one of these old people that live on Monument Ave. I want to say thank you to Mark and Susan especially for kind of bringing this all together. Anything that can be done would be amazing. I'm out in front of my house almost every single day, and I always see multiple vehicles going at least 50 miles an hour or faster. I have to go across the street to get my mail, and it's not very fun. The curve comes around, and they're already doing 50, and it's like, do I go? Do I stop? Do I take my life into my own hands to retrieve my mail? So whatever can be done, I think we'd all appreciate it.
Great, thank you. Anyone else who would like to comment that hasn't spoken yet? John.
I just wanted to say that I think that perception is often reality. If we take a radar and tell people it's being recorded, it would make a big difference to it. And it could be done much more rapidly. I certainly am not trying to change the legislature in Montpelier.
Although we could.
Okay, all right. We should, okay.
Great, thank you. Anyone else in the audience that wants to share anything about traffic calming measures? Nope? All right. Any final thoughts from the board? Yes, Nancy.
I'm all for slowing down traffic, and a lot of us know how fast the cars can go on Benmont, but Dan, how slow do you actually want them going on the section that's nearly done? 20? I'm afraid we're going to have so many bottlenecks, cars are going to ram into the back. That sharp corner onto Hunt Street, I tried that when the road was open. I slowed down to under 20 to make the corner. And I'm thinking if it was snowy...
That's exactly what we want.
But if it was snowy or icy, if somebody's sitting there, all I'm going to have to do is slide a little bit, even going 20, I'm going to hit.
You slow down even more.
Right.
Okay, but what about the main part of the road? With that corner, with cars having to stop to get in and out with the islands there, we all see people driving looking at phones. I think the car may slow down or stop, and then 2 or 3 cars back, nobody's going to pay attention. I just think we're going to have more problems than we've had in the past.
So Mark can speak to this because he's a transportation planner, but all the measures that we put in there are made to make it safer for folks. Slow cars down, make it so people pay attention, make it so the conflict points are less. It's all designed and been approved by VTrans. We had an engineer design it, all with those goals in mind. Now, we're going to evaluate it. We'll look at it carefully. If there are things that need to be tweaked, we'll do that. That's what will happen.
And I think that sidewalk, isn't there already a connector up Benmont by where the flower market is? Don't I see that going right up to the pathway? I mean, to me, that's where you'd put a sidewalk, not down in the middle with all those cars and all the people coming in and out. How could Mike possibly get across there in a wheelchair?
Well, Mike just said he does, so I think, again, we're looking at traffic calming measures right now, so let's stay on topic. Let's stay on topic.
I am on topic. We're looking at traffic calming. That has been done on Benmont. Nobody's wanted to come in here to talk about it and answer questions.
You just asked a question about sidewalks, so I'm saying sidewalks are not traffic calming measures that we're talking about right now. So is there anything else
on... The crosswalk, then I'm saying the wrong thing, the crosswalk where they're going.
Yeah, so if you meant crosswalk rather than...
Down where they have it right by Tennybrook. Okay. I mean, it looks like they've got an extension up by the flower market, don't they?
That could use the crosswalk too, absolutely.
Well, that seems like the common sense place you would have put the crosswalk, not out in the middle of all that, the bottlenecks and people turning and trying to watch everybody else in buses.
All right, anyone else from Select Board have any final thoughts? So I think our next steps, it looks to me like there might be some low-cost measures that you've suggested, like speed limit signs, and also, I don't know how expensive the radar either the carts or the permanent installations are. But it looks to me like we need to get data from the police department on high crash areas and speed areas. And we need your information. And we need to look at both low-cost items that we might be able to do and maybe not need to wait to next budget season, or maybe we will. We'll have to see how much they cost. And then also talk about whether we want to do a pilot or how we want to proceed. Yeah.
I just want to make sure that if speed humps, speed tables are put in, they can be removed.
They can be removed.
Obviously. Okay. I just wanted to.
It's just asphalt, right?
Right.
Just asphalt.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you have a?
I just want to ask, I guess I'll ask Stu, if we're going to see the report that Mark was referring to, so that we can study it, and then this item, not to belabor it, but it needs to go on a future agenda.
Right. So I think it'll be on our next agenda, as long as we can get, if we can get the BPD data and Mark's study, maybe we can take it up at the next meeting. And it would be nice, if it's possible, to get some information on what do additional traffic, speed limit signs cost. Is there nuance about where you put a speed limit sign as well? I mean, it is true, you can turn on many roads and you have no idea what the speed limit is until you get.
Yeah, I mean, basically, they're supposed to inform people, when a lot of people turn onto a road, you do need one there, and I have noticed there are not that many on Monument Ave and many other roads, so
yeah,
it's a good thing to look at.
Okay, I think if we can pull some data together pretty quickly this week so that we all have time to look at it. Is there anything else that we should ask of staff to get to us this week? Okay, all right, so we're planning to put this on the next agenda as well. Mark, I don't know if you're around. It's
I'll
very
have
helpful.
to check my calendar. I think I am, but
okay.
I'll check.
All right, it'll be the 4th
Great.
Monday.
Well, thank you very much.
No, it'll be the 2nd Monday. We're changing months.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very, very much for spending all this time
Thanks
with
a lot.
us.
Thank you, Mark.
Thanks.
All right, that was absolutely informative and sobering. All right, moving to the manager's report.
Yes. There are two action items before you on the manager's report, and then I have a couple of news items.
Oh, I guess we should let them leave. Okay.
We can do that.
Yep. Folks, if you wouldn't mind, thank you very much for coming. If you want to have conversations, please have them outside. This room echoes something terribly. Even with our sound calming measures.
It's a little better, but...
It's a little better. Yeah. I don't hear the back. Well, I don't hear the back row. Yeah, that's exactly. I think that's what we lost. Yeah, which was good. Okay, and I think Jean closed the door, or is closing the door. All right. I'm waiting for Jean because she's closing the door. Yeah, yeah. She's talking? Ah, okay, proceed.
I will do
Dang
that.
it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, we originally developed two questions for you regarding boards and commissions and adjustments thereto. The first had to do with the DRB, which currently has lost 2 out of its 7 members, and it's creating problems with gathering a quorum and being able to take action. Initially, we thought that having the board reduce the number from 7 to 5 would create a lesser number for a quorum and perhaps make doing business a little more user-friendly, so to speak. We have since learned that statute was altered some years ago, and in order to reduce the DRB, it does require action at a meeting of the Select Board. So we would suggest that this item be placed as an agenda item at a future board meeting because it's technically not warned as our agenda items are. And the board really has 2 choices. We can advertise for vacancies to try to fill the vacancies or reduce the number to 5. And we'll talk over with the chair and vice chair and how we approach that. But
All right. Well, I mean, I think let's have, I mean, I am, okay, we increased the number fairly recently because we had, right? This was the board that
We've gone up and down over the years, which is, it's hard for me to recall, but.
I think we did this like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
3 years ago.
But what I would ask is if you guys are not considering reducing the number, which I'm not advocating for one or the other, but if you are not considering that, in which we'd have to discuss that at the next meeting, that you authorize us to advertise immediately for those 2 positions.
I'd rather do that.
Because we really need to we need to be up to full strength, because I don't want to get into a situation where we're pushing applications off because we can't get a quorum. Because right now, if 2 people don't show up, we can't act.
Yeah.
And
I think
we've had a couple meetings where we've had the bare quorum and we've just been able to do the business that we need to do. So maybe if you folks are in agreement, that you could just authorize Stuart to get the advertisements out and ask them to be in a couple weeks so we can get things rolling with new members.
Would that be agreeable to re-advertise?
So should we change the action that's requested?
No, we'll just, that's what we're doing right now. So if we are in agreement that we want to keep it at 7 and advertise, which, I think 7's a better number than 5 anyway.
How long have they been short 2 people?
Just
let's see. So, well, we were officially short 2 people just about 3 weeks ago, but the 2 folks that eventually resigned had already taken positions in other states and had hoped to be able to work from home enough to be at the meetings, and that didn't work out. So it's been several weeks where maybe 3 months where we've had trouble getting a quorum. Combine that with summer vacations and that sort of thing, and it makes it difficult. Ideally we could get an advertisement out this week and try to have folks interviewed by the board.
Yeah.
Maybe even, I don't know. It'd be nice if it was the second meeting and the first meeting in September, but I don't know if we can make that happen. If that's enough
if
time.
we could have the slate by then?
I don't know.
Yeah,
I just
that's
don't know
probably
if there's
too
enough
quick.
time. That's pretty tight.
Yeah, that's too
Our next meeting is not until the 17th, and I think
Okay.
we'll probably be okay for that. So maybe if it's the second meeting in September, we can get some folks appointed. That would be ideal for us to. I just don't. We've never had to delay somebody because of a lack of a quorum, and I just would hate to set that precedent. So
I agree, and I will say that I did contact everyone that was up on the DRB to make sure that they wanted to stay, because that was a board that we didn't have any openings on at the time, I think.
yeah, we had one. We had a new individual join.
Mr. Schmidt was appointed. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So you started the fiscal with a full slate, and since then you've lost, and you're down to 5 active, you're down to 5 members. And if you lose 2 in a meeting, you don't have a quorum.
Yeah.
Understood.
Jean?
I'm just wondering, and I don't know the answer to this, you do, while we're looking at this and it's kind of under a microscope, are there other changes you could make with the meeting time, I don't know what, that could be possibly changed as well?
So we've never, like I'd mentioned before, we've never had an issue getting a quorum, so I think it's just the fact that we're down 2 members. It just
Okay, that's the only thing that's, and what happened to those 2 members was nothing, it was out of your control?
Right, they both took positions out of state.
Okay, I was just making sure that if,
One of them
what
is
the
no
reasons
secret,
are.
it's Cat Briers, who just announced today, so.
Yeah, there you go.
So-
Yeah, okay, all right.
Can we put the word out tonight if people are
That's
interested?
what we're talking about doing. So would someone make a motion to allow the staff to advertise for 2 positions on the DRB tomorrow?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any more discussion?
That's different than what is, that is the action
Exactly,
item, so just kind of.
This has nothing to do with what's on here anymore.
Yes, so I would just like to reword that
No, we already made the motion.
We're making a motion instead of
Yeah.
following the action that the town manager asked us.
So yes, we're not doing what
Correct.
the motion
Yeah,
you
I just
wanted.
want to make that clear.
So any other discussion about this before we vote?
If we're unsuccessful with finding 2 more people, then we may have to consider.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
And DRB is a board that does require some background. So ideally, no, more than some other of the boards. But let's see where it takes us. So do we think if we did 3 weeks, where would that take us? If it's advertised tomorrow, if we do 2.5 or 3 weeks, and it means we would need to then interview?
Could we do it for 2 weeks?
Well, we want to have it out long enough that...
You've got vacation season ending,
Yeah,
back
and
to
Labor
school
Day.
starting. People are going to be a little preoccupied.
So what's 3 weeks?
3 weeks from right now is 1, 2, 3, September 16th, and that will be the second Monday in September. That'll be our first meeting,
So if we made it that Friday before,
the 13th.
if we made it Friday the 13th?
That's a quick turnaround that we're asking for. I just want to
Is that-
say that.
Yeah, that's just to get the applicants, then you could interview and make appointments on the 27th.
So
Yeah, we wouldn't interview by then.
applicant deadline the 13th.
Yeah, and then we would plan to interview the next week.
So we would.
Does that work?
Yeah, I'm just trying to see just to get a couple people for the board as quick as we can.
Well, yeah, I think just with Labor Day and the end of the holiday vacation and beginning of school.
So I was wrong about the dates. The 9th would
do
be
it
our
again.
second, the 9th would be our second September meeting. So we would be, right, the 23rd being the second. So with that schedule, it would be great if we could have a slate for the September 23rd Select Board meeting.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
And if
All right.
that doesn't happen, we would agree to go back to the layout that Stu talked about initially, which would require warning the change in headcount for the September 23rd board meeting.
Yeah, so if we don't have applicants by the 13th, then we'll go to Plan B.
We'll know to do that during agenda setting.
Okay, so you guys will put out the notice tomorrow.
We'll get that done.
Jim, if there's anything you can do, putting an article in the paper, that would be much appreciated. All right.
Can you bold that paragraph in your story there?
What about a letter to the editor?
We can ask Jonah to put something in as well. That's a great idea. Yep. So you'll work with Jonah?
Clark
Great.
has something.
Yeah.
Hi, the simple mind of Clark. Could we please state what DRB stands for so people have an idea what they might be interested in?
Development Review Board?
I mean, I just think in general,
Good
if
point.
people
Yeah.
heard that, they
Yeah.
might say, oh, that's
Clark makes a good point.
Very good point.
Thank
The
you.
Development Review Board.
And where the expertise
Well,
would
so
be nice.
it'll be, the paragraph will be,
Yeah.
Maybe some folks are listening tonight, it's the
Yeah.
Development Review Board. They review proposals for development in town, including subdivisions and any commercial type, significant commercial development. They meet on the first and third Tuesdays of every month at 6:30, if that impacts folks. So if you're interested, please apply. You can reach out to Stuart or to me, and we'll make sure that your hat goes in the ring for the Select Board, too.
Areas of expertise would be?
Engineering, surveying, any kind of development, if you're able to read plans, that's really helpful. A planning background is helpful. Construction, we have, I can just think on folks, we have an engineer, an excavator, a planner, business folks who are familiar and interested in development, that's perfectly fine too. You don't have to have any real expertise, but an interest and a willingness to learn how to or already know how to read plans would be.
And like working knowledge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and so if they call the town, they can also get information on how to get hold of the town manager. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, so
Okay.
we took care of that part.
Yes, the second item was
Oh, did we not vote? Okay.
See, you are the...
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Is it unanimous? Okay, thank you, Nancy. Hey, we did that one by consensus.
The second part of that motion that still exists is the Energy Committee currently has a select board member serving as a liaison, and that person is also a voting member. And it has been suggested that the liaison be a non-voting member, as is the case in all other similar situations. And that would require a motion from this board to remove the voting rights of the select board liaison to the Energy Committee.
And so that person, which happens to be Ed this year, would continue as a voting member this year, but when we reappoint next year, then that switch would happen then, because otherwise they'll be down to 6 members.
I think that's a very good point of clarity, so let's just say that again. I happen to be in that seat this year. It would be a blow to the committee to lose a voting member this year because their structure is in that way, and they have not had a chance to even think about what that means. So, plus that is how it was that's how it was adopted at the beginning of this fiscal.
So this would take effect in May of 2025.
Or, I think June is when the new boards.
Usually they take it, yeah. We start the whole process in May, so. All right. That would be the motion I'd be looking for.
Okay.
I'd like to make a motion that we change the Energy Committee liaison position to non-voting to be aligned with other liaison positions effective in the 2025-26 fiscal year.
I'll second that.
Any more discussion?
I'm curious to know what the thinking of the board was when they decided to make this a voting position in the first place.
I think you should inquire of the board.
We didn't do that.
So, no. So the chair at the time, which was not me, felt strongly that it should be a voting member on that board. And we all said, okay. And having been a liaison to that board, I can't think of any reason why the liaison should be a voting member. I think it'd be very nice to have a 7th community member as a voting member. So.
And it's inconsistent the way we are structured now.
All right. No other comments? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is that unanimous? All right. Thank you, Nancy.
The second action item has to do with the Cat TV Facebook page postings. During the meeting, Cat TV has a Facebook page that operates, and individuals are allowed to post comments on that page. It came to our attention that many of the comments are personal attacks or mean-spirited statements that really have nothing to do with the quality of business or helpful to the purpose of the meeting. We don't get to see those in real time, and the only way we really get to see them is after the fact, if we choose to look. So we approached Cat TV about how they might better screen those kinds of comments. And unfortunately, they don't have the staff or the capabilities to further screen things that would be considered hateful or mean-spirited that would be posted. And therefore, I was recommending to the board that we ask Cat TV to block all postings on their Facebook page during the meeting. And I leave it to the board to determine whether or not we want to do that.
Tom?
Yeah, if I could, you do mention down here that an alternative way to comment directly to the board is being devised in-house. I am not comfortable making a decision on this without knowing what that alternative might be. I may, that's going to affect my thinking. So I would like to move that we table this until we can hear whatever plan that staff might come up with.
Assuming we can't hear that plan tonight.
Honestly, even if we could hear it tonight, I'd kind of like time to think about it.
I hear you.
Yeah, but do you have something to share?
No, I don't.
Okay, Clark.
I think that this is far beyond overreach. There are people out there who, for whatever reason, feel compelled to say things that some people may interpret as mean, hateful, whatever. And I don't think that it is our role as a representative form of government to go to an organization such as CAT TV and pressure them or suggest they make changes internal to their operations to address something that someone on this board or someone in the community may not like or feel uncomfortable with. As many people in this town are aware, a couple of years ago we had that big blow up with this gentleman who was making hateful, mean commentary to an elected representative, and it degenerated into people wanting him thrown in jail and all sorts of things. I swore an oath to this country, and one of the things I swore an oath to was to defend the Constitution. And short of someone being on CAT TV or any other forum asking for or indicating we should do violence or mean things to people, we need to stay in our lane. How CAT TV operates is how CAT TV operates. I cannot and will not support any form of government censor or censoring and people's comment on social media.
Okay. Other thoughts?
I agree with Clark 100%. When I pay my phone bill, I'm charged extras to support public access in Vermont, whether it's the news or the TV, and I didn't see the comments, but you're elected official, you have to have thick skin, and I also have confidence in most of the people in Bennington who will be on there. I think if people are on there really being out of line with the things they're saying, I think other citizens will call them out on it. But like I said, I didn't see the comments, and without seeing them, I guess I really shouldn't say anything, but what someone might find very offensive, I don't know. I'd have to see the comments, but I'm not against censoring CAT TV. Too many people have taken away the rights and voices, and a lot of us hear things in the media we don't like and don't agree with, but that's the way it is.
And I don't necessarily disagree with either one of you. I'm just saying that without knowing what this alternative way they might come up with is, I can't make a informed decision to vote on this evening.
Are you making a motion?
So I did make a motion to table.
Oh, okay. Someone want a second? Someone want a second that motion?
I'll second it under the provision that we continue discussion on the substance.
Well, that's why we can have the discussion.
Yeah, I want to continue the discussion on the substance here.
Okay, so a motion's on the table. People that haven't spoken yet. Sarah?
May I interject? Robert's Rules of Orders indicate that a motion to table, there is no discussion.
Oh, there's no discussion. All right. So, oh, that's too bad.
I feel very uncomfortable with that because we got some very strong feedback from some members of the board, and we did not hear from all. That's inappropriate.
Do you want to rescind your motion just for right now? Or do you want to?
Yeah, I mean, I'm happy to hear if other people want to speak on the subject. I mean, I have thoughts on the subject. I would rather speak on the subject when we can actually take proper action.
Comments have already been made.
Does that make sense?
That's a good point.
Comments have already been made.
Yeah, that is true. Comments have already been made.
And it's out there.
Okay, so why don't you...
I'll withdraw my motion for a moment.
All right. Sorry about that. All right, Sarah?
Yeah, I think that our town Facebook page is able to block comments.
They don't block comments first.
They're able to censor comments.
Or they're able to...
They're able to censor comments. So I think that we are opening ourselves up to a lawsuit if we are able to censor comments on CAT TV. And I'm not in favor of doing that at all.
Jean?
Well, you all know I am not a fan of Facebook, never have been, never will be. However, I am a fan of free speech. I guess I'm curious, before Facebook existed, was Cat TV showing our meetings live on one of their channels as they do today? It's just, so the addition is that it's now on Facebook Live. Okay.
Well, it's just that you can comment. They've been on TV since the mid-'70s.
So
what I'm saying is when you just watched a meeting live through the Cat TV website, that's what you were doing. You weren't able to make comments.
That is still the case. If you
That is
watch it
still the
from
case.
If you watch it, if you go on television and watch it, you don't see comments. It's only if you watch it through Facebook.
So, in a world before Facebook, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. It's Facebook that's forcing us to have this conversation, and we need to have it. I get that. But I guess I'm wondering if we just stopped, if Cat TV stopped showing it on Facebook and people were allowed to just watch it, and they can, if they want to have a conversation with their friends, they can be emailing each other and texting each other.
So the value of having it on Facebook and YouTube is that it reaches a broader audience. The only people that can see it on Cat TV, public access television, are people in the catchment area. So if someone from Shaftesbury or Pownell or Florida or Delaware or Woodford
So you can't go on the Cat TV website in Florida and watch the meeting? I did not know
on the
that.
television.
I did not know that.
But
they can do it on their computer?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just looking for clarity here. Okay.
Clark.
I think my personal experience, when I was sitting in Hawaii trying to watch a select board meeting, there were provisions on YouTube where people were actually making comments that I could read and even respond to, because one of the big questions was, where's Clark Adams? Where's Clark Adams? So I said, I'm sitting off the shore of Maui, which immediately appeared. Now when you roll over to the Facebook side, maybe they're parallel, but they're not connected actions.
They are. I saw your comments on Facebook the next day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how to do it.
But as the meeting is going on, people can interject their views and opinions on the course of the meeting. Now, when I look back on Facebook, yeah, things show up on there, but it goes back to my basic stance that I don't think it is appropriate for a governmental body to go to an organization like Cat TV and tell them how they should allow public comment to be posted on their site. Now, they can decide on their own that we're unhappy with what some people may determine as vitriol or hatred on their line and come up with an internal policy. But I am very uncomfortable with the idea of us as a elected body going to a freestanding media organization and saying, we want you to change how you process or publish commentary because we don't like that content.
I will say that one of the things that town staff did ask of Cat TV is if they could follow the town's communication policy, which doesn't allow personal attacks. And I think the point at which I felt like we need to do something, and I think that the 2 months of the 4 meetings worth of comments that we have, we should send to all select board members since they have not all seen them. Because I think that will show you there are only 6 or 7 people that comment, and 95% of what's on there.
And are people using their real names?
Yes.
Okay.
No, they're not. No, they're not. No, they're not. No, the Florida people are not. It depends. It depends. They're not all using their full names, but they're well-known names in Bennington.
I think Jeannie makes a good point.
But can I finish that thought? I think the breaking point for me was I got a notice saying you should go on and look at what is being posted on Facebook, on Cat TV. And I did, and it was someone that was sitting in the back of this room who got up to say something mean, was told they could not make a personal attack, so sat in the back and made their personal attack on Cat TV Facebook while sitting in this meeting. And it was like, okay, for me, there's something wrong if our communication policy says you cannot get up and have a personal attack about someone. And they can sit in the back of the room and do that. And we don't even know they're doing it because we're not on social media during the meeting. And many of us are not on social media at all. But it felt like we need to figure, I don't know what the answer is here. I'm hoping that town staff can come up with something that allows people to comment, but uses our communication policy, which we all voted for. So I think we have a communication policy. So for me, that's the big concern. It should not be different if you're in a meeting speaking or if you're sitting in the back of the room.
If I may, everyone on this board has spoken but me.
Yeah,
I would
go
like
ahead.
a moment
It's
to
yours.
speak about the issue, please. If there was a way that our communication policy could be enforced, it is the policy that this board adopted. And let me explain to those of you that haven't seen the comments yet, you're making an opinion about them. And those of you who are stressing freedom of speech, which I am absolutely in agreement with you on, Clark. We took an oath of office when we were elected. Not our family members, not our children, not the staff of Bennington, not the members of the public whose business comes before this board for discussion in public. Those are the comments that this board would not allow. And the way that the public interacts with us today is they come to a meeting and they have the opportunity to speak either during public comment about non-agenda items or they speak while we are in discussion about an agenda item. There is no personal attack about our children, our family members, our businesses where we earn a living, because we don't earn a living sitting here, our staff who did not take an oath of elected office, they're simply earning a living to feed their families. Part two, this board sits here today having difficulty recruiting people to serve this town in any public way. I will fight that fight to the end because I love Bennington and I will serve as long as I am physically and mentally capable in some capacity. When we hear over and over and over again from community members who tell us that they refuse to serve because of the negativity on social media, and it's people on social media that we're talking about, I have a real problem calling that freedom of speech. I am not going to let this item go. I am very interested in hearing what the staff develops for a communication tool from the public that follows our communication policy that is appropriate, that leaves my family, my children, my business, and everyone else's out of the public eye. Thank you.
All right.
Did everyone else speak?
Everyone, so everyone has spoken. We can put a motion back on the table if we want, because we are not going to make a decision tonight.
I just have another comment for everybody who's already spoke.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, I kind of feel as we see people that comment, and I personally feel we go out to the people that we know are commenting, And personally, I talk to those people. They're not saying the same things to me that they're saying on the internet. I don't know about everybody else on this board.
Right.
And I personally feel that we can't fix the internet. You know, it's out there. People aren't saying the same things that they're saying, but the internet's out there. They're saying things out there they're saying things on every page. They're saying things on every platform. My opinion is we just can't fix the internet. It's out there. It's just...
So, Sarah, we did pass a communication
Oh, I understand,
policy.
but, you know, citizens, they've got the right to say really nasty things. It's ugly. We know it's ugly. My personal opinion, it's ugly.
Okay.
Right.
And if I could just clarify, Clark, the only reason we went to Cat TV to discuss it is because we contract with them for this service. We pay them an hourly rate to be here, and they offer these services as part of their contract. So I believe we had a right to negotiate with them if, in fact, we didn't want one of those services available to us, because it's a contract issue.
That's good information, but again, I look at it from the standpoint, I think in Mr. Trump's first term, he blocked people on Facebook or social media who were saying things.
I'd like not to discuss the former president's first term.
A federal court decision was made that governmental entities cannot block Facebook or social media posts they disagree with. Now, I stand by the fact that the select board, the town of Bennington, has a communication policy on Bennington business and activity. I support that. I agree with it. An outside organization has their own policies. We may have a contractual relationship with them, but unless that contract, and correct me if I'm wrong, it has a proviso that allows us to filter or modify the internal workings of Cat TV. I do not believe it is appropriate for us to lash out at the citizenry. Everyone in this room has heard me say time and time again how I want to hear from people. And those people, some of those people who are writing those vile things, some of you are aware that, heck, they call my house. They email me on my personal email. And my wife says, you know, Clark, you're saying the same thing over and over again. If you got a problem with what's going on the select board, you need to be standing right there and present to us and the people of Bennington your concerns and your solutions. And no matter what they call me or where they see me in the grocery store, I politely listen to them. I don't necessarily agree with them, but I tell every last one of them, I didn't see you at the select board meeting. You're telling me you have information that's contrary to what's being said at the select board meeting? Please bring it. I want to see it, I want to hear it, and maybe I'm overstating it, but I think everybody up here wants to see and hear their concerns. But to turn around and tell Cat TV that they should not permit the public to comment, regardless of whether we agree with the commentary, I think that's a wrong thing, and I'm with you 100%, Ed. My wife didn't run for office, my grandchildren, and I would be really unhappy if somebody were to launch personal attacks against them, based on my position as an elected official in this town. But short of that person threatening physical harm to my family or me, I would just have to kind of live with it. The Supreme Court has said the speech that needs to be protected most is the speech that people are uncomfortable with.
So the motion that was rescinded was to table this until we see what the staff have come up with and see if it can fall in line with the communication policy, so that the comments that we are hearing on meetings, you can actually track it. And I do think it's important on an FYI, so no discussion, but on an FYI before the next meeting, that everyone on this board get those 4 meetings worth of comments, so they can get a sense of both how many people are commenting or how few people are commenting, and how large the volume of comments are and the character of those comments. So, and I think that'll help the discussion.
I'm also making an assumption here that no matter what we would decide, if we were going to decide to do anything, we would run it by Merrill?
Yes.
Okay.
And, yeah.
Merrill Bent, she's our attorney.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, Tom, you want to make your motion again?
Yeah, I would move that we table this for this evening. I do think we need to vote on this. And as I said, I don't necessarily disagree with you at all. But I don't have all the information. I don't feel I have all the information I need to make an informed vote tonight. And for that reason, I am moving that we table the discussion until the next meeting.
Second.
All right. Any other comments before we vote? All those in favor of tabling this discussion, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Can I get a, is that
Yes.
Nancy, Sarah, Jeannie,
Ed,
Tom, Clark, Jean? We're unanimous. Okay, so it's tabled. All right. Thank you for bringing it to us, and, it'll be a healthy discussion. Continue.
Okay, just a few other things that don't require action by this body. There is a notice here of intent to remove a tree in front of Shaft's Men's Shop. This tree, if you go by the place, you can see the sidewalk is raised to a very dangerous height, and it is also interfering with the water shutoff to the building. So we need to remove the tree in order to preserve the water service. We will replant in a different location to avoid the shutoff, but I wanted to get that out there. Very quickly, 2 pickleball courts have now been constructed at Willow Park, where the old tennis courts used to be. So those are open and ready for use. And on the skate park, our contractor should be ready to start either by the end of this week or beginning of next week in removing of the portions of the asphalt parking lot. So that project is just about to get underway. I did have some comments in here about Bennington Avenue, but we pretty thoroughly discussed that. And just very briefly, arising out of the Main Street Antiques crime that happened here, several people have gotten together with Jonah for town staff. We're going to interface with the police department as well and begin some conversation with the downtown businesses about what we may do collectively to better secure the street itself and the businesses that are along it. So we're working proactively to try to figure out some better ways to operate in our downtown. And that's all I have.
Excuse me, Stu. Could you let us know when this group may be meeting? I kind of would like to just be a fly on the wall during this meeting.
As soon as I have a meeting schedule, I will let you know.
Thank you.
Question for Stu. I think we need to have the public in on this, the people who choose to be. A couple days ago, Vermont Digger ran quite an in-depth story on the crime in Brattleboro, businesses and citizens wanting action, gave some numbers for crime. There's a couple of things that they want to try out, but I really hope the banner, I don't think they've run the article. I really hope they run in Bennington. Things are real tough up in Burlington. Read an article about Burlington, the crime just in the past month, the murder, other issues in there, and I think a lot of people want to be proactive in Bennington and do what we can to try to find a balance, to be helpful and to address issues and just have people involved.
I think it would be great, Stuart, it's about time for the police department to come back for a quarterly, and they did address CPARB, and you can see that on CAT TV about BINSTAT, what they've been reporting on at Project Alliance, about the way, looking at heat maps, looking at the small number of people who take up most of the police department's time, and just sort of how collaborative policing or community policing can help with that, and I think that does involve the public in a very large way. So maybe the chief could come in and brief us now that he's talked with CPARB on that.
Okay.
Anything else on the manager's report?
No,
Yes, one thing. Silver Street. I heard, that tree in front of the men's store. Maybe if you could ask RJ to run around the corner and level the sidewalk in Silver Street. I don't know if anyone's been there lately, but across the street from the library, it's pretty bad. It's heaved up pretty bad, and folks walking along there in the dark are at significant risk for injury. So.
I've noticed a lot of heaving this
All
year
right,
over past
so we are ready for other business. Ed, you're first.
I have nothing.
You want to skip upcoming agendas?
No, I didn't. Or maybe I did. Besides bringing the traffic study back, I think traffic study, and when's our next? We'll know about the DRB applications as well, right?
Yeah.
Anything else? I don't think we had anything scheduled for the first meeting in September.
Jeannie, I just want to let you know I'm missing the first meeting in September.
Okay, all right. I think, so we'll have conversation about traffic study. I can't imagine that we're going to, I think that is definitely a two-meeting discussion. And DRB. So, yeah, so right now, it looks like it'll be a short meeting, although this one was going to be sort of short too, so.
We don't have short meetings.
All right, so other business, Tom?
Yeah, it seems like forever ago, but I just wanted to commend our fire departments on a absolutely wonderful Battle Day celebration. I especially enjoyed some of the living history events, particularly the Liberty Pole raising that was downtown. And I did notice that one of the Patriots bore a more than passing resemblance to our town communication coordinator. But I really think it was a wonderful Battle Day, and great work was done by everybody involved, and thank you all for those efforts.
Thank you. Clark?
I for once, don't have anything to say.
All right. Jean?
I just want to remind everyone schools are opening this week, I believe, so be aware, stop for school buses, slow down, all that good stuff.
Nancy?
A couple things. I had good feedback from people who either watched the listening session or read the article in the Banner and said they were going to make a point to watch it. Are we going to make this a monthly
No,
listen?
we voted on this, and we voted, I believe, to do that every other month, and do we have a full schedule? Did we set the dates? It was.
I haven't set all of the dates, but we did talk about going every other month,
Yeah,
beginning
so
in August 20th.
at the next meeting, can you
I'll get that together.
get that together? Yeah, because it somewhat depends on when the room's available, too. So that would be August, September, that would be mid-October. So
I read the purchasing policy for the town over the weekend that the board adopted in 2019. Pretty alarmed by some of the things I read. It says multi-year contracts may be entered into with prior approval of the town manager.
So can we, so the policies are coming back. So
but
Nancy.
I want the public, because it answers a lot of questions that I've been asking for a couple of years. Prior approval of the town manager. Additionally, the town manager shall notify the select board within 30 days of the award. Stu, does that mean you can enter contracts, and then within 30 days, you tell the select board?
That's generally correct, yes, that's what it says.
And are you telling them in executive session?
No. We notify you of contracts that we enter into on bids on a normal basis. We also, in April, send out a complete list of all of those that are standard bids, and those that we have with engineers and architects that are a continuing process, those that we believe are exempt from the policy, and those that are more than 3 years or more than a year in length. It's approximately a 2-page document.
And we all receive that.
Okay, so where do I look? I was thinking this was along the lines of the Y, what you entered with the owner of Catamount, what you entered last year with Meals on Wheels. Where do I see that policy? What is that under?
That's part of it. The Meals on Wheels is a renewable contract. Once it was established some more than 20 years ago, that renews every 3 to 5 years automatically, unless
For the
town.
we've gone around about this in your office for a year and a half. For the senior center building only. Never been discussed for another facility. But what I'm saying is, can you sign contracts that we'll be charging our town taxpayers for with various groups and organizations, as long as you tell the select board 30 days after that? Is that what this policy says?
Yes.
And how is the select board hearing this publicly?
You get it in my manager's report. If it's a new contract, you get it during budget process as to what contracts we expect to enter into.
Okay, well, there's
would an example be, does that include things like buying a truck, or are those different kinds of, what kind of contracts are you talking about?
I'm talking specific contracts where our town taxpayers are paying for the Y, are going to be paying for Meals on Wheels a lot more than they did. Who was the other one I keep asking you about? Because to me, this has been flipped backwards. We're the board, and the people who've been on before me, we need to know the details and the cost to talk publicly so that we and citizens can have feedback before we decide if you're going to sign the contract. And I understand this was done 5 years ago, and I should have looked at it years ago to understand.
But we're going to look at all of these policies, so this is not the time to have a conversation.
Well,
The policies come
I want the
forward.
town office to put this on speed dial and get this to us quickly. There's other things.
We already voted on that, Nancy, and you were here, and
Jeannie,
we voted to have them, have all
March.
of this put before us before the end of this year.
You said
this
March.
Fiscal year. Before the end of this fiscal year.
Okay, I can't wait until March. We need this within 2 months.
You already agreed to it, Nancy.
And we cannot, we already.
Yes, I did.
I'm sorry, Nancy, we already made this decision.
Jeannie, we aren't going to get all of these in March.
So it could be an early one, but we will get we have to have seen all of them by the end of the fiscal year.
And if we're going to get one within the next...
So Nancy, then all you need to say is, I would like this to be a policy that we take up sooner rather than later.
Yes, very soon.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Last, and I already asked for this to be placed on an agenda a month ago. For over a year now, Dan, the Planning Commission, and the BCRC have been actively working to update the Bennington Town Plan. I'm very concerned that they haven't been in here to give us an update. They did a presentation, I think, early last fall. We haven't heard back.
Nancy, you asked this and it was answered. You might not have liked the answer, but the answer was that they were not at a place where they could come in and talk to you at this point. If your question is, when will the Planning Commission be at a point where they can give us an update on the town plan, then ask that, and perhaps Dan can respond to it.
Dan, when I was at the meeting in July, you were all excitedly talking about hiring a DEI expert. She's being paid quite a bit of money. By now, and I brought this up several times last year, she should have been in here to talk to the board and the public, to tell us what she'd like to do.
You asked this before.
Yeah,
Please
we've made
answer
that
again.
presentation before. When BCRC was in here with their update on what they did for Phase 1. We're kind of in between Phase 1 and Phase 2 now. BCRC is doing a lot of data collection. We're going through, the Planning Commission is going through the draft outline that they prepared, but there's no written document beyond an outline that we have for the board to look at or the public to look at. So as we get through this process, we'll be starting the public process back up, and we'll be doing regular updates to the select board. Right now, they're really kind of in a limbo time between Phase 1 and Phase 2. They did the public outreach in Phase 1. Now they're BCRC is beginning to collect data, and they'll soon begin to start drafting sections for the Planning Commission to review. And then as those sections come about, we'll set up a schedule for public input, et cetera. there's nothing for you guys to review yet. So once there is, we'll have it to you. And as you know, Nancy, the town plan is only adopted by the select board, so there's no action can be taken until you guys look at it.
But if I understand correctly, you come in, give one presentation, if the select board can rubber stamp it that night, correct?
No, I think the town plan requires 2 hearings, but you have to have hearings at the planning commission, and then you have to have hearings at the select board. So it's up to you guys how many meetings or hearings you want to have. There's minimum statutory requirements, but beyond that, it's up to you folks.
And I don't understand, and I think it's the handout you gave me at the meeting last July. It says some of the citizens are going to get paid for their input.
I don't know anything about that. As far as
Well, I think I know where the handout is, because I'm thinking, why would somebody get paid when most of us who went to the workshops and...
I don't know anything that Nancy, that doesn't make...
I think that was the BCRC listening sessions. I think they had some funding. And I do actually think I was at a listening session where if people wanted to fill out a form to get $25 for having attended the session, they could do that. And some people did and some people didn't.
By BCRC, so
Yeah, it was not the town.
Okay, but I did bring up when you were in here last fall, I asked them, or any of you, to give about 10 examples of what it would mean and look like with DEI in our town plan. I have no idea what that would be, and nobody would answer.
All that information is on our website for the town plan update. There's a whole report, DEI report, and I'm happy to sit down with you and go over it if you'd like.
But I think the public needs to know this. I wonder if we're the first town in the state.
So that was all discussed by BCRC when they made their presentation?
Okay.
It was embedded in their presentation.
BCRC isn't running the town of Bennington, or they shouldn't
No,
be.
but they're contracted by this board, by the town, to do this work for the Planning Commission in concert with the Planning Commission, and they've been paid to make those presentations through a contract.
But this is something I've raised, and other people have raised concerns about. I don't think the BCRC is going to do the town plan for Manchester. They're assistants. They shouldn't be telling us what they want our town plan to be.
No, they're not. They're making suggestions to the Planning Commission, and then the Planning Commission will either adopt them or change them, and then it comes to the Select Board, and you will either adopt them or change them.
But didn't the minutes from...
So I'm sorry, this is other business, and this is not a warned agenda item.
Well,
it's not a warned agenda item.
I asked you to put it on the agenda.
Because it's not ready to go, and
There's
that is what Dan
nothing
keeps
for us to
telling
talk
me.
about beyond what we've already shared,
But Dan,
Nancy.
don't the minutes from your meeting last August state...
I don't know what my minutes from last August.
Well, I thought it said after a long back and forth or discussion, the Planning Commission agreed to do what the BCRC wanted to the town plan. But it didn't say what they wanted to.
We approve the town plan. So Nancy, I'm going to ask you respectfully to please...
And I want an update within a month.
So what I would say, Nancy, is if you come to a Planning Commission meeting, we'd be happy to
Dan,
to
I
talk
can
with
go,
you.
but I want the public to know and have a say.
And they will have a say because this cannot be adopted without the Select Board's approval. And there is a robust public outreach as part of Phase 2, which has not begun yet, beyond the data gathering stage that BCRC has started. So there's nothing that's ahead of you or that we're well beyond where we can have public comment. It's in the very beginning stages of drafting the document. And as it's drafted, there will be public opportunities for the public to comment, and there will be multiple opportunities for the public to comment once there is a draft in place. And ultimately, it's up to you folks on whether you want to adopt it or not. The Planning Commission they're required to submit something to you, but you don't have to accept it. You can make any changes you want.
And Dan, you will get us the schedule for public comment and listening sessions as soon as you have that. Yes?
When we have it, we will.
Okay. All right.
BCRC is not providing that.
Thank you. All right. Sarah?
I do, yes. I had some company come into town. Well, it was very, very quick that I'm not sharp right now. So thank you. Thank you for bearing with me. I had a brief moment where somebody gave me a call and said, we're having family come into town, and I gave them a tour around the town. I called the town clerk, assistant town clerk, and I said, hey, could I bring family into town and give them a tour of the town charter? She said, yes, I can show you the copy of the town charter. I brought them in, they checked out the town charter, it was great, showed them around the town. I'm being very quick, so please bear with me. And it was great. I showed them around the town, showed them around, and it was just a really nice time today. Second thing is, I wanted to mention the last meeting, I was caught off guard and I voted to close off School and Pleasant Street. That is an event that I planned. It wasn't on the report, so I was just really caught off guard, and I wanted to let people know that that is something I planned. So there was a little conflict of interest there, but I wasn't really aware of it. So had I known, I would have done either a written disclosure or I would have done a recusal. So that's on me. So I hope everybody that went enjoyed the event, but that is on me as well. So that's all.
Super, thank you. And I just want to remind people that we have a vote coming up. Is it September 10th?
September 10th, turf field.
Yes, so it is a special election, and the hours are 10 to 7. And so please come out and vote.
Get the information before you vote, folks. Get the answers that you need to make an informed vote. Information is available through the MAU board and the turf ad hoc committee. The numbers are not as startling as you think they are.
You can also vote now, early.
And early voting started. I have voted, and I don't mind saying I voted yes.
Ed?
It's perfectly okay.
It is. It's true. And this is not the SVSU board. All right. So, unbelievably, we have need of an executive session for personnel. And so we are going to bid all of you a fond good night. Could I have a motion to go into executive session? Thank you very much for staying.
Executive session.
Thank you. Is there a second? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Let's take a couple minute break. Oh my God. No.